Welcome back to the live show. Welcome back to the live show. Yes, we are back with another one. Trump faces Los Angeles, City of Angels, so they say. But for the past 2, 3 days, it's been probably not the City of Angels, but hopefully it's going to come back to the City of Angels. All right, Gavin Newsom, what in the world is going on with your city? Come on, yo. Come on, Gavin Newsom. What in the world is going on with your city? Why would you allow your city to get this wild? What is going on? Ladies and gentlemen, right now, we're going to check out Gavin Newsom's interview. Or we could actually start with this right here, and then we're going to go to Gavin Newsom's interview because this is just crazy. This is absolutely crazy. This could have just been a very easy ICE deploying their federal agent, getting the illegals out of LA. But Newsom, Karen Bass, decided to make this even worse. Here we go.
You just stay with me. Our photographer Andy doing an incredible job. So we're walking together. I just want you to see. So it's turn around. You see this. You see law enforcement coming this way. Andy, you can just focus on them. So this is what we've seen. You see different groups of officers coming down the street, doing what they can. You have. Again, the National Guard here. A tactical incident alert was announced by. Okay, we're being told to move, so we're scooting aside, but we're going to keep the camera up because we just want you to see this is what has been going on all day, or actually for hours now, right? Officers doing what they can to try and protect the public. And a very fluid situation. There's at least 300 National Guardsmen in 3 different parts of LA right now. Again, the president said he's going to be deploying 2,000 troops, but we do know that hundreds are currently here trying to protect the property and the people. And we also got, I'm just going to be quiet a little bit. I'm not sure you guys can hear me over the sirens, but you see you have officers closing in on this intersection. This is where this has been going on for hours like that now. You have it's calm, things will be peaceful, and things will just pop off at a moment's notice. And that law enforcement, they'll converge and do what they can to try and keep people safe. I'm going to toss it back to you. My throat's a little dry.
Very active.
There's been, the tear spray.
Very active scene, Christina. I can tell you we've been following along with your coverage all afternoon. Great job for us there on the scene. Christina, if you're still there, we would love to ask you some questions about what you're observing there. I know that you've been exposed to some of the elements. I heard Christina earlier when she was covering some of the disruptions when some of these protests were turning violent, things were being thrown. You could hear Christina inhaling some of the what I suspect to be tear gas. What we're seeing right here appears to be some type of altercation between a protester and law enforcement.
Yeah, they just took someone down who had breached the police line. I've been watching these live pictures since we've been on the air, and we have seen a consistent series of projectiles being thrown at officers by these protesters, many of whom are flying foreign flags as they attack members of law enforcement. As she said, as Christina said, this has been going on for hours.
Christina, I do want to ask you a question if you're still with us, kind of jumping off of Guy's point here.
Yeah.
We know, you made mention to all the various law enforcement there on the scene. We understand LAPD, I think the sheriff's deputies are there, and of course we know the National Guard and ICE. Can you give us a sense as to who is doing what there? Our understanding, or my understanding, is that National Guard is there to protect the ICE agents who are trying to perform their job. What more can you tell us about, kind of the role that law enforcement is playing there on the scene?
Right, so you have the National Guard. They're here to, ensure public safety. They're protecting the federal property, as you know, that's been defaced. There's just lots of graffiti and whatnot on there since Friday. You have LAPD now. You can see their police presence. They're here, in the intersections offering support. They don't carry out civil immigration enforcement. They've reiterated that because, there's been a lot of protesters, calling on them to stop the immigration raids, and they said, we're not doing that, but they are offering support to the ICE agents and the people carrying out this, just trying to keep people safe. They're just trying to keep the peace. People are attacking the ICE agents. They're throwing bottles at them. They're throwing rocks and cement. We have video of that from yesterday and Paramount. They're setting cars on fire. That violence is something that they do not want here. The police do not want here, and so they're doing what they can to stop that. The sheriffs, the LA County Sheriff, he said that too. They're trying to do what they can to protect the public and keep people safe. And again, when we talk about I just want to talk a little bit about some of the arrests that were made. So DHS, they released information this afternoon about on 11 of the people who were arrested during ICE's operations during this week. And they described these people as some of the worst illegal criminal aliens. They're from all over the world, these 11 people. We're talking about Ecuador, I think Peru. They're saying that, these people, their criminal histories include sexual battery, child abuse, second-degree murder. Those are the kinds of people that ICE have been getting off the streets during their immigration enforcement operations. And yet you have these protesters out here who are upset about it. They want everybody released. And again, the Trump administration reiterating that is not going to happen. But again, live look out here. It seems okay right now, but again, things can change in a moment's notice. Back to you.
Well, Christina, it's Guy Benson, and just for the viewers, it's almost impossible for our camera people to pan this crowd without showing some profanity that they've spray painted somewhere. So we apologize for that, but it is a reflection of who these people are with their foreign flags and their masks as they attack law enforcement officers live in broad daylight. Christina, my question to you is, this is how they're behaving now in broad daylight. What's the concern about after dusk when the sun goes down? Often the worst elements get more violent at night, right?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great point. With lots of protests and demonstrations and riots, you have opportunists who don't even care about really what's going on. You see them running into stores and running out with jeans and things like that. We haven't seen that yet. Hopefully we don't. But that's definitely a criminal element that a lot of people are concerned about because, as you said, hundreds of people are out here. And you have people, waving around, Palestinian flags and just different things like that. You're like, what are you out here protesting? Either way, violence is not acceptable with these law enforcement agents, and we're just not sure what we could see tonight. This is the third day of this. Just before you guys came on live to me, there were rubber bullets being deployed. And interesting to note, when law enforcement takes action like that, some of these protesters, or rioters rather, they get fired up. They're like, let's go. Here's law enforcement ready to go. It's like it's like they want to fight. And so that's definitely concerning, especially as it gets later in the evening.
Christina, it's Alicia, and just one thing, we hope that you and Andy Anderson are staying safe. Andy, folks should know, is a fantastic Fox News photographer out there, one of the best we have. But what I'm curious about is when you were giving us your report earlier and you had the federal building behind you, and then all of a sudden you guys had to turn because there was activity behind you. Is there a sense that there are protesters and people coming in from all sides?
Yeah, I mean, who knows where some of these people are coming from? I mean, it's just, I mean, it literally, like here's it here.
Yep. Right there.
I mean, you see a guy getting arrested right there, and I mean, he looks almost happy about it. I mean, this is what we're seeing. I mean, people out here happily tagging up, spraying, graffitiing up a car. I mean, they were they were over there doing that to a Waymo vehicle, and I'm sorry you had to, see the curse word written on it. But I mean, they were happily doing that. They have their face masks on, they're all covered up, committing vandalism. And what does that do to support anyone's efforts? I mean, they say they're out here and, trying to protect, the fight for their freedoms and the release of some of these people who have been arrested or detained. But when you're out here attacking law enforcement and tagging vehicles, I mean, really doesn't do any good for your cause. I would say that for sure. Back to you.
Hey, Christina, it's Joe Concha. Guy's point earlier around possible curfews that may take place, because if this is broad daylight, you can only imagine what's going to happen at night. We all saw what happened during 1992 and the riots that happened there in Watts and Los Angeles. What are we hearing now from California's leaders as far as Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, Adam Schiff, Senator, California, Kamala Harris, former, obviously, the Democratic nominee in 2028. This is her hometown. Are we hearing anything from leaders there trying to quell this and say, go home?
Well, Karen Bass did put out a statement. I can't remember all of it, but she was condemning the violence and saying they're not going to stand for it here. But it feels a little late, considering that this stuff was breaking out on Friday night, when she was condemning the immigration enforcement instead of the people who are actually attacking law enforcement. So it seems a little late. Governor Gavin Newsom, I'm reading my phone now, he tweeted, "Trump is trying to manufacture a crisis in L.A. County, deploying troops not for order, but to create chaos. Don't take the bait, never use violence or harm law enforcement." Yeah, Trump is manufacturing this crisis. Trump is asking people to come out here. Yeah, right. Obviously not true. This is what needs to be said is that these people, they need to go home. The people who are attacking law enforcement, the people who are committing vandalism, just causing absolute chaos. This does no good for the community. And that's just the bottom line. I can't tell you what the senator said, but I'm sure he had some colorful words possibly for the immigration efforts that are going on right now, the immigration enforcement efforts that are going on right now. But I can tell you, again, like you guys said, night is coming, and it's very concerning because it's broad daylight, and you got people tossing bottles and things at law enforcement. You had that yesterday, throwing rocks and cement at law enforcement, which is incredibly dangerous. I mean, they're driving their vehicles and they're having rocks hurled at them. That could cause a crash. Somebody could have been killed. I mean, it's just awful. They're setting buildings on fire. It's just chaos, unnecessary chaos. And again, some of these protesters, they're calling for the release of everybody that ICE has arrested during their immigration enforcement efforts over the past week. And as I mentioned, DHS mentioned that some of those people, they consider them to be the worst of the worst criminal aliens. They listed some of the crimes that they have committed, in terms of their criminal history. And again, we're talking about sexual battery, abuse of a child, second-degree murder. Trump officials say, you should be thanking ICE officials for getting those kind of people off the street, but it's definitely not. That's not what's happening here. Back to you.
Christina Coleman there live for us in Los Angeles. Thank you so much, Christina, for your coverage. We will check back in with you over the next couple of hours. All right, well, as President Trump swoops in with the National Guard to clean up the mess created by California Governor Newsom and LA Mayor Karen Bass, he is taking to Truth Social to slam them for, quote, not doing their jobs to stop the anti-ICE mayhem. And as Christina Coleman just reported, Newsom is accusing Trump of trying to, quote, manufacture a crisis. And Karen Bass says they have it under control. Listen.
I do not believe that is called for, because I am confident that LAPD and other law enforcement agencies like the sheriffs can handle things in Los Angeles.
And Newsom, who has accused Trump of escalating the drama, is now threatening to withhold federal taxes, Alicia, over Trump's use of federal resources to squash the riots, put an end to the violence. Scott Bessent, our Treasury Secretary, actually responded to that today in this going back and forth now. But, there are some questions over, the deployment of federal resources to the state when the state is not asking for it. And Governor Newsom is pushing back on that. How do you think that's going to play out when America can clearly see the violence unfolding in a major city?
Well, we all know what happens when you have protests, riots, and the like in big cities and smaller ones as well, but definitely big cities. Businesses take a hit, right? You have people who live in these neighborhoods who don't feel safe when they see this. The work week starts tomorrow. If this is still going, are folks going to be able to get up and go to work in this neighborhood and feel safe? We've seen cars on fire. We've seen broken windows. We're seeing law enforcement attacked. And also, consider this. They went in to get people accused of second-degree murder, people accused of child abuse and the like. Instead of saying, thank you, those people are no longer on the streets. They're saying, you're doing it wrong.
And Guy, we have a video clip. I don't know if we want to play it because our live images are just so great, but something I flagged to our producers was a piece of video that showed some small business owners actually tending to sheriff's deputies as they are responding to some of the tear gas. They were wiping away their tears. In other words, the small businesses were caring for the law enforcement responding to these riots, suggesting to me that small businesses are supporting law enforcement in this area.
Well, I think that that's true, right? Because they want to have a safe community and people who can come into their businesses and patronize those businesses. They want law and order. Most people want law and order. Some people do not. And I just keep being struck, Lydia, as we're watching these live pictures. Ever since we came on the air 19 minutes ago, I have not seen a single shot from any of our cameras on the ground or above that do not feature Mexican flags, F words, people flashing middle fingers, and people hurling objects at law enforcement. The reason that the National Guard has been called in by the president over the objection of Governor Newsom is because federal agents are being attacked in the city of Los Angeles. And Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass and these other so-called authorities in that neck of the woods seem much more interested in blaming Donald Trump for the chaos of these people caused by people in their political coalition than they do protecting those law enforcement officers who, by the way, the standing policy in L.A. and in California as a sanctuary city and state, respectively, the policy is to interfere with federal law enforcement doing its job, not to participate in the enforcement of the law. And so if that's the reality on the ground in California, as it clearly is, then there needs to be backup to protect the people who are trying to carry out their completely legitimate duties as federal officers. That would be the National Guard. It should be Gavin Newsom who called out the National Guard for this. He refuses to do that sort of thing for entirely political reasons. It's just politics all the way down with these people, but the images speak for themselves, and if they think this is doing them any good politically, I think they are delusional.
There are constituents, Joe, that, residents of California, residents of Los Angeles that are living through this right now in this moment. And you got to imagine that many of them don't agree with the protests and the violence that's happening and unfolding in their very streets. Do you think this could be a tipping point where finally there could be some change, an elimination of removal of sanctuary city policies? Governor Newsom could be held accountable for not asking for federal resources, and Karen Bass could be held accountable for a slow response, telling everyone that they're actually safe, that this isn't happening?
Elections have consequences, and that's the only thing that's going to change the sanctuary city equation here. In other words, Gavin Newsom obviously can't run again, but whoever runs for California governor, whether it's Kamala Harris or whoever else may jump in there, you'd have to actually have another party, whether it be an independent, whether it be a Republican, take over the state. Obviously in Los Angeles, same thing, but it is just such a blue area, that part of the country, that it's very difficult to imagine. Because right now it's one party rule, right? We have Democrat Gavin Newsom, we have Democrat Karen Bass, we have Democrat Adam Schiff, we have Democrat Nancy Pelosi, we have Democrat Eric Swalwell. So until those leaders change, the policy will not change. What I'm amazed at is that we continue to see on other networks, like CNN, for example, the way they're covering this is quite remarkable. Here's a tweet they put out. President Trump deploys National Guard after second day of Los Angeles immigration protest. No, you're missing a word there, CNN. It's illegal immigration, as if that Donald Trump is trying to deport people that are here legally. No, it is illegal. And the portrayal of this, whether it be from CNN or ABC, CBS, NBC, is that these are immigration protests.
And they're not just protests.
Right. They're not protests. They're riots.
Right.
Thank you. They're riots. And you have to put the word illegal in there, or else maybe you're trying to twist the narrative a little bit, Lydia.
And just can I add here, when you start talking about riots, when you're talking about the violence and the destruction back again to these businesses, there are cities, downtowns, that still have not recovered from the George Floyd protests and the damage that came. Denver is one of them, and I see it all the time, that changed the city. And so these need to be taken seriously.
Remember Minneapolis?
Right.
Tim Walz waited days, the governor there, before putting in the National Guard. And at that point, a police station was burned to the ground, and there were millions upon millions in damage. Donald Trump's trying to get ahead of the curve here, Guy.
Well, according to his wife, the First Lady, that was because they had their windows down there.
Smelling the burning tires because it was a sentimental moment.
And with all due respect to Mayor Bass down in Los Angeles, when she and we had that statement from her saying, oh, everything's under control, we've got this, she has no credibility. When she says we've got this, we remember the last disaster in her city where she wasn't even in the country. She promised when she ran for that office that she would never leave the country as long as she was mayor of Los Angeles. Then she was on the other side of the world when the city started to burn down. She did not handle the crisis well at all. Now we're seeing another crisis with different sorts of fires. And her priority seems to be attacking the president of the United States, which is so backwards, but also so indicative of the worldview, right? Her job, every person with power in the state of California should be trying to de-escalate this situation and to have the lawless mob go home and back down. They can say we may not agree with all the ICE decisions and some of these immigration actions, but we don't handle this with violence. Go home. This is unlawful. This is dangerous. Instead, every single statement they put out, even ones where they say a few words, lip service about don't get violent, the thrust of all of the statements is about Donald Trump and about the feds being the provocateurs when all the feds are doing is enforcing the law.
That's right.
President Trump spoke with Governor Newsom on Friday. It's not like Newsom didn't know where this was going to be headed and that the president wasn't going to take this seriously. President Trump told him he needed to lock this down. So for the pushback makes me wonder exactly how genuine that is when you consider he had a conversation with the man who is executing this calling up of the National Guard.
Well, speaking of Democrats, we have a soundbite from Maxine Waters. Here she's going to respond to the National Guard being deployed to California. Let's listen here.
He's going to try to goad us so that he has a martial law. This is not just about deportation. This is about how they're going to treat people of color in America. And this is how he's going to get to have martial law because he wants to goad us into a fight. They have all the guns. We have to get more people involved, and perhaps we can push back.
Push back. My question to Maxine Waters there is, push back on whose behalf? Because ICE, to remind everyone, was deployed to go execute lawful warrants for the arrest of illegal migrants that are here in this country, again, illegally, and accused of some really heinous crimes. Christina Coleman went through it for us earlier, but these are some violence, assaults, attempts to create sexual assault, attempts to create rape, burglary. Some of these people have been charged. Some of these people have already served time. Some of these people have criminal histories in their home countries. So we're not talking about going after and apprehending just anybody. We're talking about apprehending people who are not supposed to be here, and then once they are here, they are staying and they are committing more crimes against a community of people that are American citizens.
And Lydia, what happens if we don't remove these people? Then you have a situation like we had in Boulder, Colorado, where a man decides to go to a very peaceful gathering, mostly elderly Jews that want hostages coming home from Gaza, and he takes a makeshift flamethrower and decides to light them on fire to try to reenact the Holocaust. He should have been removed, that gentleman. He was here, gentleman, I shouldn't even use that word, that monster, since 2022. He overstayed his visa. Then the Biden administration was so kind to give him not one, but 2 work permits to stay here longer. If he was removed, those people don't end up in burn units. And that's exactly what Donald Trump, that's exactly what ICE is trying to do here, to remove these people so crimes like that don't happen. And here we have Maxine Waters and the rest of the Democratic Party in California saying, no, 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 protect these people when they should be protecting citizens that are here legally.
Well, and to the point that I made a few moments ago, Lydia, that soundbite from Congresswoman Waters is grotesquely irresponsible. There should be people in positions of authority and power trying to lower the temperature and tell this lawless mob to go home and to stand down and to stop being violent. Instead, she's fanning the flames. She's actually pouring gasoline on the situation, saying that we need more people out here to try to make a difference. She's on the side of the rioters, quite clearly. And then she expanded it. It's not just about immigration. And she started race baiting and fear mongering on every possible level. And then she was, worrying about martial law and all this stuff. This is precisely the opposite of the type of leadership that is needed in this situation, but it is very indicative and illustrative of the type of leadership that is being displayed by Democrats in the state of California at virtually every level.
And very sadly, Alicia, to Guy's point, it seems like Maxine Waters and the other Democrats who are fanning the flames here, it looks like it's working. This is the 3rd day that we're seeing these riots. Right. Throughout the day that we've been following it, we've seen these crowds continuing to grow. I don't dare offer an estimate on how many we see here, simply because it's hard to estimate, but the crowds have grown throughout the day. And as we look out across these live pictures, what do we see? ICE, Mexican flags. I think I see some flags from Guatemala among the crowd. And then when we saw the violence, it is yesterday hurling of the concrete, hurling of the rocks. We saw the damage. Can you imagine anyone, law enforcement or anyone, driving through those crowds, trying to leave and having these massive bricks thrown at your windshield? We saw the damage of what was done to them. People could die in something like that.
It was terrifying. And when we talked to Tom Homan yesterday on the show, he said someone is going to die. And we're watching things unfold. It's very scary. But one of the other things, Maxine Waters said this is about people of color. She made it about race. She made this about race. One of the people who they went in to get,
of course,
Lionel Sanchez Laguna, Mexican national, battery on spouse, willful cruelty to child, assault with semi-automatic firearm, and driving under the influence. But she's saying this is about people of color.
Wow. We are going to continue to follow these breaking and developing.
This is just wild, man. Karen Bass, Nielsen.
Hi, I got to tell you, just moments ago, there were dozens of anti-ICE protesters all along this major freeway here southbound on the 101, just blocking out. Some of them are going back and forth. We heard some flashbangs there. Law enforcement trying to get this under control as much as they can. It has been very chaotic here, downtown LA near the federal building all afternoon. You've had tear gas.
Okay, so joining us now is Jonathan Fahey, former acting ICE director and former federal prosecutor. Thank you, sir, so much for joining us. First, I just want to get your thoughts on the response right now that we're seeing in Los Angeles. Folks in cars trying to get through on the 101 being stopped by protesters or rioters, depending on who the person is.
Yeah, what is happening here is really awful, and I think what makes it so awful is the conduct of both Gavin Newsom and Mayor Bass on this, because they are taking the side of rioters, as sort of bringing us back to 2020 BLM, and they're putting the public safety secondary to their political agenda, which is open borders. It is so shameful, and I think President Trump earlier talked about sort of the incompetence of Mayor Bass and Gavin Newsom, but it's so much worse than this.
Oh,
This is
man.
malevolence. They are not even trying to stop this. They're speaking out on behalf of the protesters and not supporting these officers that are simply doing their job. And I think one thing that's important to note, just because Joe Biden and Alejandro Mayorkas refused to enforce immigration laws, that was their responsibility. Donald Trump is doing what he is required to do. It's not just simply a political decision. It's a requirement of his job. And this is so shameful. This shouldn't even be happening, but there is no support from the state and local, not the law enforcement, because I'm sure they're in line, but the state and local officials are not supporting federal law enforcement, and people are in danger because of it.
Jonathan, Guy Benson here. You used to direct ICE. You were the acting director of that agency, so you know what this work looks like and what it's supposed to be. Describe what ICE agents have been up to in this area of Southern California, and then describe the violence that has been directed at them by so many of these people.
Well, my understanding, this all happened when they were serving a warrant a few days ago, and again, a warrant issued by a federal judge to look into alien harboring, which is a very serious crime, as you all know. And so that's all started in reaction to that. And they, from my understanding, they have had things like, rocks thrown at them. They've been assaulted in other ways. And we've seen this from a lot of politicians. This is predictable. The rhetoric, referring to ICE agents as the Gestapo and things like that. This is the natural next step in all of this. And it's really scary because these are people that put their lives on the line to make us safer. And they should be able to expect the support of the local authorities against people like this. And unfortunately, they're not. And, something really bad is probably going to happen, and it's going to be preventable. And because our local officials in Los Angeles, let's say the local officials in Los Angeles were doing nothing to stop this. So these people are put in danger. They're put in fear of their lives, just simply doing their jobs, which is to deport illegal aliens. And when you see the people being deported, these are dangerous criminals. So they're making the community better by deporting them. And the Democratic Party, and this is the Democratic Party doing this, is fighting every single deportation because they have an open borders agenda. And the way to elevate yourself within that party is to be as far open borders as you can be.
Jonathan, from a political perspective, it's like watching Thelma and Louise at the end driving off that cliff from a political strategy perspective, because you look at polls showing 75 to 80% of Americans, right? So that doesn't mean Republicans or conservatives, but we're going into independents and even some Democrats support criminal deportations. Can you even get into the logic of all these Democrats, whether it be Gavin Newsom or Maxine Waters or the L.A. Mayor Karen Bass or Tim Walz or Kamala Harris? I could go down the line as far as why they are against this happening, because most of the American people want this to happen, yet they continue to jump into this quicksand and they don't want to change course. What do you make of that?
I think it actually makes sense because the Democratic Party is about 5% on this issue, but the way for them to elevate themselves within the party is to be completely radical on the issue. Yeah, it's crazy on the sort of the broader electoral sense because it isn't a popular issue, but their party is so out there on this issue that the only way they'll get any traction is to be for open borders against ICE. And the first person in the party that starts supporting ICE and supporting law enforcement, they're going to be cast aside in this party. This party's been so radical, and it's not just been recently. 2020, the anti-police wing of the party dominated, and BLM, they turned over policing to BLM in a lot of Democratic cities. But it makes sense, not for broader winning elections. It won't work there, but it will help elevate themselves. Tim Walz was, I would say politically dead, and now he's coming back by going down the Gestapo route and all these other things. And he's getting traction. And it's sad, it's pathetic, it's not in the interest of the American people in any respect, but they frankly don't care.
Jonathan, it's Lydia Hu. Thanks for your time this evening. I want to ask you about, I guess, kind of some legal questions. that the Democratic governors are raising about President Trump's use of his authority to deploy the National Guard. You know, I guess they're making a big deal about the president's use of sending federal resources over the governor's objection, saying that this is something that really the states should handle. And I just wonder, as a former federal prosecutor as well that you are, you know, what you make of that issue and where, you know, does that have legs? Where could that really go? I mean, could they challenge President Trump's, you know, use of federal resources here?
They can, but they're wrong. And it's kind of an irony to the whole thing because they're saying that the states should handle it. And I think President Trump would be, yeah, the state should handle it, but clearly they're not. And in fact, they're supporting the rioters. But the president has, the governor has the authority, but the president also has the authority if rioters are getting in the way of the enforcement of federal law, which they are here, the immigration law. He has the absolute authority to do so. It's appropriate to do so. And I would say in this situation, it's a requirement to do so. His job is to keep these officers safe, to enforce federal law, and keep the community safe. And it's unfortunate that Gavin Newsom won't use his authority and won't use his influence because he would rather, you know, promote, again, this open borders agenda. And he couldn't care less about the citizens of Los Angeles or citizens of California because the greater constituency, again, is this sort of this illegal alien pro-open border constituency. But yes, on the legal issues, President Trump is correct here. And it's unfortunate the local officials won't do their jobs.
Jonathan, bear with me here for just a second as I give just a little update because I want to continue this conversation. We all do here. The Los Angeles Police Department Central Division 13 minutes ago posted the California Highway Patrol have entered the southbound lanes of the 101 freeway and are attempting to disperse the demonstrators off the freeway. Jonathan, I don't know if you can see your screen, but we are watching for any activity that comes out of that. At the same time, Governor Newsom's office sent a letter to Defense Secretary Hegseth himself, and in it they write, in dynamic and fluid situations such as the one in Los Angeles, state and local authorities are the most appropriate ones to evaluate the need for resources to safeguard life and property. Indeed, the decision to deploy the National Guard without appropriate training or orders risks serious.
Thank you for tuning into the live show. Shout out to Haywood Jablomi. Haywood Jablomi, thank you for the super chat. He says, when will they allow live rounds? I hope not. But anything is possible because this is getting out of hand. Out of hand, ladies and gentlemen.
Seriously escalating the situation. Jonathan, all I can think about when I see some of the statements from the governor's office and the governor himself on X saying it's time for the National Guard troops to go home are the people who live in this area, the people who are trying to drive by on the 101, getting to wherever it is they want to go. And what would they think if they knew that the governor was saying, send the people who are here, sent by the president, to go home?
I would hope they'd be appalled. And what Gavin Newsom's doing is so cynical and so dishonest. You know, sort of this broader theme of what they're doing is like they're creating chaos and then try to blame Donald Trump for the chaos. But, you know, he's right. The local authorities should deal with this and they know how to deal with it. But he won't let them because of politics. If he turned it over and said, let local police deal with it and let them do their jobs, I bet they would do their jobs. But they're being prevented from doing so. But again, it's the deepest cynicism from Gavin Newsom that's so dishonest. It is breathtaking how bad it is. But, you know, again, you know, the president has a responsibility not only to ensure the federal law gets enforced, but also to protect these agents and protect the citizens. And when the state isn't going to do their job, he has to step in, unfortunately.
No, Jonathan, it strikes me that these rioters are opposed to any deportations of anyone ever, including the most dangerous illegal immigrant criminals in our society. And yet they want to stay in a country and let those criminals stay in a country that they apparently don't like very much, to put it mildly. And we're seeing law enforcement on our screen getting pelted again with objects and being screamed at. The prevalence, Jonathan, of foreign flags in this crowd, Mexican flags, Central American countries as well, It's a very interesting statement being made by these rioters as they hurl insults and objects at law enforcement, that they are doing so while carrying the banners of foreign countries where they apparently don't want to go back to.
Yeah, it's an interesting irony, and the only American flag that I saw in your clip was upside down. But it is funny, that is the standard Democratic Party position on immigration. They don't want anyone to be deported. I mean, they may occasionally say criminals, but if you look at it over the past few months, they basically have fought every deportation, whether it's a gang member, whether it's Trinidad or Aragua, whether it's somebody convicted of certain crimes, they will stand in the way to try to prevent it, to make it difficult, to stand in the way of ICE agents. And that's their standard move of the party. And it doesn't seem like they're relenting on this. And you would think, like Joe was saying, this common sense position would be, hey, let's at least deport the criminals and then maybe discuss the other people. But they won't fight anything. And they're just taking this radical position. But yeah, it is an interesting irony. We're not seeing a lot of American flags there and a lot of foreign flags. And how does that, come across to the American citizens that are not only, these people are already in the country, but a lot, in many respects, they are costing taxpayers enormous amounts of money. And to see this, it's really appalling. I think the average American is not going to be very pleased with this.
Jonathan, it's Joe Concha again. Andy Ngo is reporting, and this guy just gets into the toughest of situations as far as reporting, right in the middle of seemingly any unrest that happens throughout the country. He is reporting now that Antifa International has announced a June 8th direct action. So that is that today or is that tomorrow?
Today.
That's today. Okay. To attack the ICE facility in San Francisco. The planned riot is organized in support of the riots that are going on in Los Angeles. So is there a fear that this could spread to other cities like we saw with BLM in 2020?
That's what I think the plan is to make it so disruptive. And the Democrats, this was a very, in many ways, successful for them politically in 2020, just create so much chaos, so much misery, and then hopefully the media will carry their water and attribute it to Donald Trump. I don't think it's going to work this time. I think the American people have wised up to this game. But I do think this is probably going to be a broader movement of the Democratic Party because they are going to fight this everywhere. And I think until, we start seeing more people arrested and probably some of these city officials on things like sanctuary cities and things before this quells down. But I would expect they're gonna do this until maybe there'll be somebody in the Democratic Party, some cooler heads that will say, hey, this isn't working for us. But right now it does seem to be, we're going to see Antifa and other groups probably getting involved, getting in on the act here.
Well, we are going to continue our coverage. And Jonathan Fahey, former acting ICE director, we want to thank you for walking us through this as we watch these incredible images on the screen. Again, Jonathan Fahey, thank you.
I mean, think about it. You have Russia, you have China being a threat to the United States. And yet, in the homeland, in Los Angeles, this is happening. What in the world is going on with Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass?
I got to tell you, just moments ago, there were dozens of anti-ICE protesters all along this major freeway here southbound on the 101, just blocking out. Some of them are going back and forth. We heard some flashbangs there. Law enforcement trying to get this under control as much as they can. It has been very chaotic down here downtown LA near the federal building all afternoon. You've had tear gas dispersed, rubber bullets deployed, the flashbangs, all to try and protect the property and to protect the people here from some of these anti-ICE protesters who are just causing chaos. Take a look at this video. Tear gas was used to disperse a crowd as some protesters threw back those tear gas canisters. This was yesterday in Paramount, a city in southeast LA County. Fox News correspondent Bill Malugin reports that DHS has an office in Paramount that they're using for a staging location, and protesters found it and gathered in that area. And in addition to all of the violence, some anti-ICE protesters were shouting on loudspeakers at officers. This is what they've been dealing with. Take a listen.
ICE out of Paramount, we see you for what you are, ICE, a terrorist organization.
again, a crowd of protesters, they gathered outside of the federal detention center where we're near right now. They gathered outside of that on Friday. Police in riot gear used tear gas then, again, to stop the violent protesters. ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons called the situation appalling.
So we're in a major U.S. city, and we have law enforcement officers trapped, surrounded by over 1,000 protesters, and the LAPD would not respond to help those officers in their time of need. Over 2 hours it took for them to come get there.
Well, LAPD responded to that comment saying, quote, our personnel mobilized and acted as swiftly as conditions safely allow. But as you can see, things here on the ground still pretty chaotic. I mean, you can hear those flashbangs behind me. And President Trump was very clear that more needs to be done, sending the National Guard here. Now, California Governor Gavin Newsom claims the move, sending the National Guard, deploying them rather, was to cause a spectacle. That's what Governor Gavin Newsom called it. But President Trump says otherwise, writing on Truth Social, quote, if Governor Gavin Newsom of California and Mayor Karen Bass of Los Angeles can't do their jobs, which everyone knows they can't, then the federal government will step in and solve the problem. Riots and looters, the way it should be solved. The president also made this comment today. Take a listen.
Nobody's going to spit on our police officers. Nobody's going to spit on our military, which they do as a common thing. They get up to them this far away and then they start spitting in their face. That happens, they get hit very hard.
And also this afternoon, LAPD issued a tactical alert saying the use of less lethal munitions has been authorized by an incident commander. They said people were throwing items at officers. I witnessed that, people throwing bottles of fluid. I don't know what was in those bottles, but throwing them at officers. And LAPD saying an unlawful assembly has been declared. So that is the situation right now. You got these protesters here on the 101. You got them on the bridge. There's different points, different areas of downtown that are blocked off. You can hear those flashbangs behind me. It's unclear how long this is going to be going on. And also, I just want to reiterate, in terms of the people who were arrested during these immigration enforcement efforts, DHS, they did put out some details about this. They said, detailing about 11 of the people who were arrested, they called them the worst of the worst illegal criminal aliens. They're people from all over the world. We're talking about Ecuador, Peru, Mexico. And, those people, those specific people, they say they have extensive criminal histories. And some of those crimes include sexual battery, abuse of a child, second-degree murder. So some serious crime.
When I started realizing that this world, no matter what you do, no matter what you say, you could never change some people. You could literally be the savior, and they're still going to crucify you. They crucified Jesus Christ. They crucified Jesus, didn't they? They crucified Jesus. This was the savior of the world. And guess what they did? They crucified him. So when people start saying stuff, I just let them talk, because you crucified the savior of the world right there. And guess who crucified Jesus? The Pharisees. The people who were supposed to be the professionals. People who were supposed to be the ones who knew the laws. And they've read the law, yet they crucified this guy. So, if they could crucify Jesus, who in the world is Trump? Trump is just a human being. Human beings, man, I don't understand. You can never understand why people do stuff. Like, why would you let your city go down in flames and then say it's peaceful protest? People cross into the United States illegally, and when you get in here, you start shouting and crying for due process. How does that even work?
Crimes there, and those are the people that ICE agents are removing during their operations carrying out here in LA. Back to you.
Christina, it's Alicia again. A question about this group that it seems to be growing on the 101 there with their signs. It's really delicate for law enforcement when they're in this situation, because they're we know they're trying not to agitate them further, but they're also trying to keep in mind the safety of the drivers and the public in this area. How is it that, if you can see it at all, that law enforcement is approaching these particular protesters? Are they pushing them back? How are they doing this?
No, so they're not pushing them back. They're creating a line, a squirmish line, as I believe some of my law enforcement friends call it, and they're lining up beside each other and just creating a perimeter, protecting the property, protecting themselves, and they just they move forward and they're telling the crowd to get back, and that's how they're going about it. They're not going off on any of these protesters just randomly. They are protecting themselves. They're in a line. They're moving together. This is a very, very coordinated effort. You can tell. You have LAPD again, declaring an unlawful assembly. You have some of those officers providing security or providing safety measures, blocking off some of these intersections where these protesters are going. And you can see they're trying to keep traffic moving smoothly. But I can tell you, even just getting here downtown, I had to get out of the car and talk to some of the officers and say, hey, we're not here to cause any problems. We're just trying to get to the location where the National Guard is positioned to report on this very ongoing and important situation right here now in LA County. But they were so careful, and that was hours ago, that they had this area blocked off, because they're trying to do what they can. They're trying to do their best to keep everybody safe.
Christina, it's Guy Benson, and the aerial shots that we now have on the screen, you can see there. You might not be able to see them, Christina, but we can. It looks like these rioters have now blocked off 4 lanes of traffic, an entire direction of traffic in one of these major thoroughfares, one of these major arteries. So that's a huge disruption. I want to come back to something that we played in the intro to the hour in one of our montages. Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey referred to what's been going on in Los Angeles over the last couple days as, quote, peaceful protests. That's how he described them. Based on what you've seen on the ground, Christina, how would you address that characterization by Senator Booker?
I would characterize that as wrong. Throwing boulders and rocks at officers, there's nothing peaceful about that. Shoving law enforcement, attacking ICE agents, there's nothing peaceful about that. Setting fires in the middle of the road, just running around, there's nothing peaceful about that. The vandalism, that's not peaceful. I mean, these are crimes that are being committed here. And, like the Trump administration, like the officials say, the perpetrators, they're going to be held accountable. I mean, I already saw an FBI alert for a potential suspect behind assault, or who allegedly assaulted an officer. And again, this is LA. It's a big city. There's cameras everywhere. There's surveillance cameras everywhere. So even though you got a lot of protesters out here with their face covered with masks and whatnot, police are going to go through, authorities are going to go through all of this evidence. And when they go through it, they're going to be able to identify a lot of these people who are happily, tagging up vehicles and attacking law enforcement, shoving people around. They're going to go through this evidence, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens from there. But that was a very long answer to a brief question.
All right, here we go. Peaceful protest. This is a peaceful protest, right? Here we go. Liberals, peaceful protest. All right. Check this out. It's peaceful. All right, according to you liberals. Here we go. Very peaceful protest. Coming up right now.
And this is not just a good gesture. This is something we need to make real. We need to bring down this empire once and for all. All right. Burn it down! Burn it down! Burn it down! Burn it down! Make it great like 92! Make it great like 92! Patriot afraid of you! Patriot afraid of you! Make it great like 92!
Burning the United States flag.
Like 92! Patriot afraid of you! Patriot afraid of you! Fuck ICE! Fuck ICE! Fuck ICE! Fuck ICE! Fuck ICE! Fuck ICE! Fuck Trump! Fuck Trump! Fuck Trump! Fuck Trump! Fuck Trump!
Very peaceful, ladies and gentlemen. Matter of fact, Mother Teresa is with them on the street right there. It's very, absolutely peaceful. Matter of fact, this is a church, okay? They're having a Sunday service, all right? Peaceful protest. They're not burning flags. They're not calling death to ICE. They're not calling F Trump. They're not. It's so peaceful that I could have a baby right here. A pregnant woman could have a baby right here. It's so peaceful, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely peaceful. Too peaceful, as a matter of fact. Very peaceful. All right. Okay. Peaceful protest, ladies and gentlemen. Peaceful protest. Wow, this is so peaceful. This is absolutely peaceful. Oh, wow. Peaceful protest. Oh, wow. Very peaceful. This is the most peaceful protest I have seen. This is so peaceful, guys. Wow. Shout out to Newscom. Very peaceful.
News Live, I'm Alicia Acuna in New York. Chaos erupting in Los Angeles as immigration protesters clash with a federalized California National Guard and the Los Angeles Police Department for a third straight day. At this hour, we've seen bottles and rocks thrown by protesters and highways blocked, and smoke bombs and flashbangs have been used to disperse the crowds. You're looking at a live picture there from downtown Los Angeles right now. And as we watch things continue to unfold that we've been watching for a number of hours today, we will now be joined by phone by former D.C. police detective, defense attorney, and Fox News contributor Ted Williams. Ted, glad to have you back. I want to pick up on what we were talking about 15 minutes ago or so. We have some time now because the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass, held a news conference to give an update on the chaos that's unfolding that we're watching there on our screens. And in that time, she took a moment to say that the chaos that we are seeing has been caused by the Trump administration's decision to send in the National Guard. Your thoughts?
Well, Alicia, I don't believe that there's been one single reason for the chaos that we are seeing in the streets of L.A. at this immediate time. I certainly, if I was in charge, I would not have federalized the National Guard. I would have allowed the L.A. Police Department, I believe, to try to handle the situation. Those people are trained. The National Guard is not trained for urban warfare. The L.A. Police Department has handled many of these incidents, but I don't think we can blame it on any one given scenario there. These are people who have been hell-bent on having their beliefs carried out here in L.A., and they don't give a damn whether they burn the city down as long as whatever they believe in is out there in the open.
And Ted, in addition to the National Guard, I can tell you that U.S. Northern Command put out a statement earlier regarding the protection of federal property and personnel in Los Angeles, because we did see earlier that there were officers in front of the federal building in downtown Los Angeles, and they were trying to protect that. And in the statement, U.S. Northcom said at this time there are approximately 300 members of the California Army National Guard 79th Infantry Brigade combat team deployed at some of the various locations in Los Angeles, but additionally, approximately 500 Marines from the 2nd Battalion, 7th Marines at 29 Palms, California, they are prepared to deploy status.
Shout out to Jet. Shout out to Jet. God bless you, Jet. Jet says, nothing makes you look more deserving to stay in America than burning the flag Get them all out now. Absolutely. You're burning the United States flag? Why in the world are you here in the first place? Hey.
Would that be necessary and augment the support the DOD's protection of federal property and personal effects? Now, Ted, we do know that Governor Gavin Newsom's office sent a letter to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth earlier saying that the national troops were not needed, that to call them off, that they were making things worse. And is it in your mind that they could make it worse? I'm just trying to understand here.
I do believe, unfortunately, that could make the matters worse. First of all, we have never on our soil in America had Marines deployed in any city. You have, as we know, National Guard, we have local law enforcement, and we have state law enforcement officers. When you look at what's going on out in California at this immediate time, you have a lot of rebel rousers out there. But the L.A. Police Department, I believe, can control this. We do not need, I believe, Marines coming into a city and being deployed.
So, Ted, just listening to what you're saying, because that is the point that the administration of Gavin Newsom is making, that they can handle this. You did bring up urban warfare.
Handle it, Newsom.
That's what this looks like. And also, at the same time, watching the police officers there, and I don't know if those are also members of the military, but they do look like they're struggling. It looks to be kind of tough, and maybe to the average eye, this doesn't look like they have things under control there.
Alicia, they may very well not have everything under control at this immediate time, because what you're seeing out on the streets right now are primarily state police officers, and you're seeing L.A. Police Department police officers. And they have a contingency of their force out there. They don't have the complete force out there. But I do believe over a period of time that the L.A. Police Department, pursuant to the training that they've received through the years of dealing with demonstrations, can bring these demonstrations under control if given the tools that they need and the green light to go in and make arrests.
The Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass also in her news conference said that she is calling on all Angelenos to continue expressing, quote, your right, your anger, your outrage, but to do it peacefully. It doesn't appear that message is being heard at this time. Ted, I just can't help thinking about the folks who live in this area, the business owners who are also located here. And then I think back to 2020 and the George Floyd protests that we saw, and the destruction of property, the vandalization of businesses, and the fact that there are still so many cities, quite frankly, still reeling from the damage and the unsafe nature that they still feel from those protests. And then here we have this happening right now. It's just difficult,
It's very difficult, because if you look at your television screen, you see rioters out in the street of L.A., but that is only a small fraction of that community. The majority of that community, they're at home watching their television, watching these rioters, and hoping that they don't come to their communities. And quite naturally, what you've just said, Alicia, about the businessmen, those businessmen are hoping that the law enforcement officers can bring this and continue to get this matter under.
Shout out to BTK. BTK, shout out to you for the super chat. BTK says, use the National Guard and Marine MPs as you want, and then send in the LA and California State Police. Talk is cheap. They just want riots and fires in socialist LA.
The control so that their businesses can survive. And that is the unfortunate thing about these riots, is that these businesses are the ones who take the bulk of what is going on in these various communities.
And just to remind folks, to kind of bring folks up to date here, the reason all of this started is because a few days ago, we had ICE officers go into Paramount, California, in the Los Angeles area. They were there for ICE raids, a series of them. And when that happened, there were people in the community who then rejected this premise, and they decided to protest. It has been growing for 3 days now. And President Trump spoke with Governor Gavin Newsom on Friday and let him know, in his mind as the president, that this needed to be shut down. And then here we are now. The president didn't see it getting any better, only worse, and then ultimately decided it was time to federalize the National Guard. And so here we are. But Ted, you know, we're heading into the evening hours right now, and that's when things can get particularly dangerous. Can you talk to us about the challenges right now that these officers are about to face as we're approaching 6 p.m. on the California coast?
Alicia, and it's sad and unfortunate, but nighttime is the enemy of law enforcement officers that are trying to bring a riot under control. And the rationale behind that is it's dark. And in the dark, you find individuals throwing bottles, or individuals shooting guns, individuals trying to do whatever they can to harm law enforcement officers. For Fox, I was out in Ferguson, Missouri. For Fox, I was in Milwaukee, Wisconsin when we had riots. And I can tell you, it is the most scariest thing for law enforcement officers to have to deal with, because they don't know where the objects are coming from, and it is very, very difficult to bring a riding group under control in the nighttime. So I'm hoping that they will flood the zone, meaning law enforcement, and that anybody within that zone they will arrest. As you know, Alicia, they've already declared an unlawful assembly out there, and that's under the California Penal Code 409. And that simply means that law enforcement, anybody in a specified area, after law enforcement has told them to move on, and if they don't, they can make immediate arrests of those individuals, and I'm hoping that this is what they will do.
Well, we will continue to absolutely watch this. And Ted, I just have about a minute here left, but, you know, former Vice President Harris did issue a statement in part saying, you know, Los Angeles is my home. And like so many Americans, I am appalled at what we are witnessing on the streets of our city. Deploying the National Guard is a dangerous escalation meant to provoke chaos. In addition to the recent ICE raids in Southern California and across our nation, it is part of the Trump administration's cruel, calculated agenda to spread panic and division. And of course, Ted, the Trump administration is saying we were actually concerned about safety here, and we didn't feel that the state of California and Mayor Bass were acting fast enough. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that I would have tried to work again further with the governor and the mayor of Los Angeles rather than bringing in the National Guard at this stage, because I believe bringing in the National Guard, it was like pouring gasoline on an already lit fire. But something had to be done in L.A. because they were, meaning federal agents, being attacked. And I think that someone had to act, and I would hope that the government would have acted more precipitously.
Yes, and everyone at home continuing to watch. We really think about all those folks in Los Angeles, in this area, who are completely innocent and really have nothing to do with any of this. Ted Williams, thank you so much for helping us.
We got it under control, yet people are burning American flag, burning cars. Yet Newsom says he has it under control.
We're back with the Fox News Alert. Chaos continues in California. Anti-ICE rioters continue to clash with police and the National Guard for a third straight night in Los Angeles. Protesters attacked law enforcement with bottles while police have responded with tear gas and pepper spray. President Trump has vowed to maintain law and order. Joining us now for our big close-up tonight is Michael Whatley, chairman of the Republican National Committee. Chairman Whatley, what is your reaction to what you're seeing here in Los Angeles?
You know, this is the culmination of Democratic leadership on illegal immigration. You know, this is a group of people that are in California right now because Joe Biden brought them into California. And we're seeing right now Democratic leadership from Governor Newsom and Karen Bass, who's doing everything that they can to try and defend the illegal immigrants that are in that state instead of getting them out there. The fact that they are pushing people to attack ICE, they are pushing people to push back on ICE, as we've heard already tonight. It's an absolute disgrace. But this is what happens when we see the Democratic illegal immigration policy fulfilled.
You know, and Chairman Whatley, it's so good to have you here. I would say that it's not even just the product of the border issue, but I think you could connect this all the way back to what we're also seeing on college campuses. I was really interested when I saw a statement from a group called Students for Justice in Palestine posting on their social media today, showing support for the rioters that are attacking ICE agents. Do you think that there's going to be a tolerance for all of this? I mean, could we actually see this helping Republicans in the midterms?
Well, look, President Trump made it very clear the reason that he is sending in the National Guard is because the Democratic leadership of California and Los Angeles is not going to take steps, and he's not going to allow what happened in Minneapolis and other cities back in 2020 happen again.
Chairman, thank you so much again. I know we'll keep thanking you, but we really appreciate this conversation. Can we talk about Gavin Newsom here for a second? Because there are very few people who believe that he's not running for president for 2028. So right now, he's the governor of California, and so he's very aware of the audience of California, but Americans across the country are also watching this future presidential hopeful.
Yeah, look, 2024 was a referendum on a couple different issues. Obviously, the economy was very big, but illegal immigration was number 2 issue that we saw in that entire election cycle. The American people do not want 10, 15, 20 million illegal immigrants here, and they certainly do not want violent criminal illegal aliens here. Donald Trump said that he was going to move those illegal aliens out when he was a candidate. That's exactly what he's doing right now, and it's not surprising that we're seeing pushback from Governor Newsom, from Mayor Bass, and other leaders in the Democratic Party for the president keeping the promises that he made during the campaign.
Yeah, I think if there was maybe one clear takeaway mandate from the last election, it was to deport illegal immigrants, especially those who are criminals. And I've seen some people referring to these scenes as nullification riots, people who are using violence to stand in the way of political leadership following through on a promise that the American people have demanded be followed through upon. And yet, as we talked about earlier in the program, Mr. Chairman, you're seeing from a lot of the leadership in California, uniformly Democrats, they are blaming these horrible scenes, the mayhem, the chaos, on the president.
Yeah, it's absolutely stunning, you know, the way that they're trying to shift blame on this. You know, those violent, criminal, illegal aliens are here because of Democratic leadership. The riots that we're seeing on the streets right now are because of Democratic leadership. And the fact that there is only pushback coming from one side is absolutely stunning. President Trump is absolutely right to say that we are not going to allow American cities to burn. We are not going to allow violent criminal mobs to take over neighborhoods like we saw in Aurora, Colorado. We're going to make sure that we have our communities safe. This is about our kids. This is about our families, and it's about our economy. And this is a thing that President Trump campaigned on and was very clear. We are going to be very aggressive in moving violent criminal illegal aliens out of America.
I think that was a very telling interview during the 2024 campaign, Chairman, when J.D. Vance was on with Martha Raddatz on ABC News. And she said, well, just a couple of apartment complexes have been taken over by violent gangs. And J.D. says back, the vice president now, says, do you hear yourself? Only a couple of apartment complexes? This is crazy. That went viral, and that was certainly a big moment for the future vice president. Let's also move on to the second topic here that we want to talk to you about. While we keep an eye on Los Angeles, clearly, President Trump has made his way to Camp David. He's expected to be focused on the big, beautiful bill, as Republicans want to have it on his desk by July 4th. But Elon Musk has become a roadblock as he brawls with President Trump over spending cuts. While the two Republican senators are also standing in the way, that would be, of course, Rand Paul and Ron Johnson. Listen.
It's not going far enough. And if we just pass this, if it's a one and done, we will not be really addressing the major problem here in terms of massive growing deficits and debt.
This is why my big objection to the bill is they want to ask us to expand their credit line to $5 trillion.
So, Chairman Whatley, how can the GOP resistance come together here? And could the drama surrounding Elon actually, unite Republicans to pass this bill? So I see Ron Johnson, I see Rand Paul. They've been steadfast as far as they want more cuts. The math says that Republicans can give up 3 votes and J.D. Vance could be the tiebreaker if it's a 50-50. Are there any other Republican votes that are out there that may resist this bill? Do you ultimately think that it comes together and gets to the president's desk?
I think it needs to come to the president's desk, right? The president ran on a very clear vision for America. It was, rebuild our economy, restore the southern border, and make sure that our kids and communities are going to be safe, and we have a strong national security. That is exactly what is embodied in this bill right now. And so this bill does have tax cuts. Right? Very important tax cuts. It's about extending the Trump tax cuts, which are going to provide a $10,000 per family benefit for low-income families. It's about no tax on tips. It's about no tax on overtime. This is going to help the economy. We're already starting to see, some steps that are being taken in terms.
Gavin Newsom just actually did an interview. Let's see what he has to say. Of course, he has nothing to say because he's always had nothing to say. Same gesture every time. Making hand gestures. Like, bro, just get this together, bro. This is your town. This is your state. What in the world do you have going on here? He's calling for Tom Homan to arrest him. Like, what? Just get your city together, yo. Okay. I guess this one doesn't want to play. All right, here we go. Gavin Newsom. Here we go.
It's still very fluid, and I won't have that for a while. So CHP has made at least 17 arrests that I'm aware of in the freeway.
All right, thank you, everyone. Commander Hurtado will stick around to do comments in Spanish for anybody who's interested.
Original trash
Very
dumpster
peaceful
that
protest.
was on fire earlier, but now
Peaceful
it's fully
protest, ladies.
involved, engulfed,
Peaceful
as they
protest,
say, in
guys.
fire speak.
Very peaceful.
A dumpster
It's
fire
going
is a
peaceful.
very appropriate thing to be describing this last few days in Southern California. And now we literally have a dumpster fire.
Jackson
that we're
and
watching.
Center is so. Are we looking? What is lit up to the right? That's not a stadium, is it? Like a football, high school football stadium?
It looks like it may be. It looks more like train tracks or possibly there, or some sort of industrial complex that we're looking at. This is sort of towards the outskirts, I think, of downtown Los Angeles, as we're looking now at some of the bridges. And it looks, at least at this hour, the good news is that the freeway traffic seems to be moving smoothly, which was not the case that we saw earlier. But some of these roads, like the one here, we see a big law enforcement presence making themselves be known. And it's interesting where they choose to deploy and where they don't.
What's atop the sheriff's patrol cars?
Are those ways? Yeah, I haven't quite seen that exactly before.
No, and it's a part of like a truck.
Yeah.
So we don't know what that is. I've never seen, I don't think I've ever seen that before.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to take a slight break away from what's going on downtown.
Yeah.
Despite the fact we'll keep a little bit of an eye on it, but we do want to get to some weather. Adam Kruger is here. And Adam,
All right, it looks like our Fox 11 LA team is going to sneak in some weather here, but I do want to take you back out to these live images that we do have coming in. Now, these are shut down in that area as protesters
Very peaceful, guys.
just gathered and
Very
refused to
peaceful.
move out of the way. Again, a live look here over downtown Los Angeles. As you can see, the clashes between law enforcement officers and the protesters, demonstrators there do continue. You also heard from Mayor Karen Bass, who a bit earlier said that many of the people who are out there are not the protesters from earlier on today. They are agitators. They are unrelated to any of this and are just there to cause problems with the law enforcement officers. So again, we're seeing the riots that are happening as a result. Looks like our Fox 11 LA team is back in their live coverage. I'm sure they'll check in with Matthew Seedorf again. So let's lift up the audio and listen in.
As we see this fire and we continue to watch the situation in downtown Los Angeles. And now we want to bring you for the first time.
Shout out to the GOAT, Luke. Thank you for tuning in. He says, Genesis, good to see you, sir. Good to see you too, Luke. Here we go.
My exclusive interview that I did today a short time ago with Governor Gavin Newsom at the LA County Emergency Control Center. This is the only sit-down interview that he's done with a local station today. And it was wide-ranging. Here it is. Newsom, what is your main message to the people of California in this moment?
He has no message.
That Donald Trump is reckless. He's immoral. He's taken the illegal and unconstitutional act of federalizing the National Guard, and he's putting lives at risk.
I mean, is it truly unconstitutional? I know it's been done before.
Well, I mean, in his own executive order, it directs the Department of Defense to collaborate with state governors. So by definition, it's illegal. There was no collaboration. There was no counsel, no consideration of the rules of engagement. It was a reckless act that has led to conditions that have been exacerbated, and it's putting people's lives at risk.
So can't he declare an insurrection and go forward with this?
Yeah, he potentially can, and there's latitude. But as it relates to the actual language in his executive order, there's a reason we're going to court tomorrow, and the reason we're confident that we will succeed. That said, he's pushing now out the boundaries, whether or not we're going to get into posse comitatus, and whether or not he's going to test the theories in that case to then require the state National Guard in a federalized posture to coordinate and collaborate with ICE enforcement, which certainly would not have a precedent in 100+ years.
You think that's going to happen?
I think we're on the precipice of that being a real possibility. I have zero confidence. He's acting recklessly. He's acting unlawfully. He's putting people's lives at risk. And it's my job to clean up Donald Trump's mess, because he's making it by the hour.
You guys talked the other night, right?
Yes, we did.
What was that conversation like?
It was a very collaborative conversation. It was a very good conversation. And he didn't really want to engage on the issues of LA, which was the great irony of this. He wanted to talk about a myriad of other issues. There was no suggestion, none, period, full stop, about the National Guard. Quite the contrary. And by the way, I have a lot of experience with the National Guard. So do you here in LA.
Right.
We've been using the National Guard. I've directed the National Guard down here prior as it relates to issues during 2020 riots. And so we have no ideological opposition of utilizing the Guard, but there's zero necessity. There was no request of mutual aid. LAPD, the Sheriff's Office, no request. CHP, more than capable. We've got 175 CHP off today because of what Donald Trump did with the National Guard.
But we see some of the images in the streets today. We see cars burning. We see freeways being shut down. We see
unacceptable.
But it's clear that things aren't totally under control right now.
That's right, because he's created the conditions.
Yeah.
He's exacerbated the conditions.
Shout out to the GOAT one more time. Dr. Luke, he says, when will Dems politicians learn that blaming Trump is a giant red flag for most Americans? They never learn, Dr. Luke. They never learn.
This is Donald Trump's. These are images that Donald Trump created.
You think he wants it politically?
Of course he wants it politically.
Why?
Because he wants to divide us. He wants to attack the rule of law. He wants to attack the democracy. He wants to attack the best of what makes this country. The reasons our founding fathers lived and died. This fundamental notion of three independent branches he can't handle. He's already taken over. Speaker Johnson's a joke. He's completely complicit. $2.5 trillion to your debt, wrecking the economy. Take Elon Musk comments on that, just not mine. I mean, it's been a disastrous presidency. And so, of course, we're here with another distraction that puts, in this case, people's lives at risk. And he's testing the boundaries of the Constitution in a way that one can clearly argue is a constitutional crisis.
So how do you negotiate with somebody who may want these images?
You can't negotiate with them. Come on, no one can negotiate with them. I mean, no one can. I've gone out of great lengths to try to work with this guy. You can't work with him. You can only work for him, and I'll never work for him. And it's shameful, those that are, and that are complicit in this, and that are rolling over. And as I said, the Founding Fathers are rolling over in their graves right now watching this.
Do you, because the other night, or he came out and said that when you guys spoke, he warned you that if you didn't get things under control, he was going to bring in
Stone cold liar. Stone cold liar. He made that up, like he makes up so many other things. He never said that.
And he also seemed to make up this idea that the National Guard did a great job last night when they weren't here.
They weren't even deployed, and he claimed victory. He's lost it. He hasn't lost a step. And I saw him trip on the steps today. I mean, this is serious. He is not the same person that I dealt with just 4 years ago. And he's incapable now of even a train of thought. He's making things up, and he's putting people's lives at risk. And he's got a band of people that are complicit in this. And that's what's so damn alarming. And we need Congress to step up, and my gosh, do we need the courts.
But now that the National Guard are here, is there some good that they can do? I mean, those folks, there's a lot of great folks there.
They haven't even been mission taxed appropriately. There's only 300 of them.
Is there anything they can do to help you?
These are great men and women. I work with them all the time. We've all worked. They've been well received by the community down here. We know these folks. We care about these folks. And I worry about them now. I worry about their safety. He's putting their safety at risk. He doesn't know what he's doing. They don't know what they're doing right now. I mean, I got the CRT teams. I got some of the best and the brightest CHP that are trained for this. By the way, if you're going to use the right National Guard, use the MPs that were out there doing the work here in terms of logistics and traffic management. But he didn't even use that.
For the fires.
Those folks for the fires.
Right.
I mean, this proves it's just political game that puts people's lives at risk. So it's not a game.
I assume that you believe in immigration law and that there needs to be a way for these folks to carry out some of these.
We have never gone the way. State of California does not get in the way of federal actions using federal resources. I've also collaborated with the federal government and vetoed bills that would compel me not to over 10,000 times, 10,000 times from CDCR. We've coordinated with ICE on deportation. I am not sitting here arguing for criminals in our backyard. And I just want to remind your viewers, we have 394 National Guard down at the border that I've had there for years and years and years. Of course, we believe in immigration rules and laws. And of course, we were very vocal on the issue of borders. I think you and I went down 4 or 5 times on the border in events over the last 5 years. We were not passive in this space.
But when we have seen agitators getting in the way of some of these ICE agents who are trying to do their job.
Hey, these sort of anarchists.
What should happen to them?
They should be arrested.
Yeah.
They should be called out. We condemn that destruction of personal property. These groups come in, they have nothing to do with these peaceful protesters, these poor peaceful protesters. These guys come in to take advantage of these moments, and that's exactly what we knew would happen. That's exactly what Trump knew was going to happen. That's exactly what his team knows. They helped create these conditions to inflame them. This is Donald Trump's mess. What you see in your nightly news is Donald Trump's making, and we've got to clean up this mess. If he can't do it, we're going to have to do it.
It was interesting, the statement.
Okay, Newsom. All right. Enough. Okay. Shout out to the GOAT. Dr. Lucas says, Veronica Gates, most politicians do blame Trump and it's getting old. I don't believe them anymore. Am I the only one? That's why he is the 47th president of the United States, because nobody believes these folks anymore. He's saying that Trump deploying the National Guard is what caused this mess. And this is Donald Trump's mess. You had ICE in your city doing their jobs the way they're supposed to do their jobs, and people were throwing rocks at them. You didn't tell your people to stop throwing rocks at the ICE agent. You didn't say that. You never said any of that stuff. You never said, let the law enforcement officers do their job. It is illegal. It is a crime to stop law enforcement officers from doing their job. It is illegal to impede ICE agents from doing their jobs. You never said that. Now he deploys National Guard. Oh, it is Trump's fault. Okay.
You put out, reminded me, I'm reading Jonathan Ives' book about Martin Luther King, and he always tried to tell people, protest peacefully. You're throwing, basically you said that if you go out and do violence at this point, you are giving Donald Trump what he wants.
You're handing it to him. So stop. These guys, these idiots that are jumping up on cars, that are burning these Waymos, these people, that's a disgrace.
Oh, for real?
And the impact they're having on our democracy, there's a lot at risk here. I mean, this is not just a simple act of disobedience. They should be arrested. They should be held accountable. Anyone who attacks any innocent person, including a law enforcement person that's lawfully doing their job, they're members of our community just like everybody else. They go to the same churches. They're good human beings. And, you know, just because we don't like Donald Trump, just because we don't like their orders, doesn't mean you have the right to hurt or harm people. And that goes for them as well. And we'll hold them, everybody, to a higher level of accountability. But that's not what Trump is after. He's not for peacemaking. He's here for war. He wants a civil war on the streets of America, not just here. He's testing the boundaries by nationalizing the federal guard.
Oh, my goodness.
Heck, his own great Kristi Noem
was
just a year ago sitting there with newsmaker Sean Hannity saying it's outrageous that Biden is considering nationalizing the guard in my great state. Kristi Noem, the same Kristi Noem, saying, what about state sovereignties and state rights? And where the hell is Hannity now? Where the hell is Kristi Noem? They're out there just singing the siren songs of chaos, trying to sow chaos and putting our democracy.
Oh my goodness, Gavin Newsom. Ladies and gentlemen, shout out to Fallen Angel. It says, as Maxine Waters is calling for escalation by the so-called protesters. Actually, these guys are not just protesters at this point. These are paid rioters, in my opinion. You cannot be burning down cars, burning the American flag. Somebody actually must have paid you to do that kind of stuff, because why would you be burning down the American flag? That's just crazy. Shout out to Fallen Angel for the super chat.
Democracy at risk. These are acts of authoritarians. Period. Full stop.
So what you're saying and what he's saying, very heated rhetoric. How do we cool this down? How do we get things to calm down? How do we get the streets at this point to be safe?
Donald Trump needs to rescind his order. Period. And then we need to go back to a process where we peacefully protest, where law enforcement peacefully organizes safe parameters of engagement, or at least parameters of engagement that keep people safe. That federal authorities have the right to enforce federal laws, but in a way that can be at least coordinated so that it's not chaotic, and that keeps families together and goes after the criminals, not innocent people that are just trying to live.
That was the exact thing that ICE was doing in the beginning. And your people started throwing rocks at them. Standing in front of their cars, would not let them drive away.
Their damn lives and just trying to get their kids educated.
What do you say to critics who say you may have poked the bear by threatening to withhold California's tax money?
This was after he said he was going for a full-scale attack on the university system and cutting NSF funding and cutting NIH funding, poking the bear. Are you kidding? Meaning standing up for principles, standing up for honor and decency, standing up for the rule of law, poking the bear? Come on.
And lastly, there's a lot of people who are scared right now, especially a lot of people who are Latino who are here legally, who are worried they may be taken away. That's a huge percentage of California's population.
Well, I mean, it goes to 40% of the population.
What do you say?
We're a majority minority state. 27% of the state's foreign-born. All these mixed status families.
What's your message to those people tonight?
They matter and we care. And that's why we're being so aggressive right now, pushing back against these authoritarian tendencies.
All right. Man, this Gavin guy. Gavin Newsom says he should do something, but does he? Watch what he does, not what he says. Shout out to Dr. Luke, the GOAT. Thank you for the super chat. He never does anything. I mean, look at what happened with the wildfires. There was no water in the fire hydrant. Is that the same man you guys are going to believe? Talking about Trump never. This is Trump's mess. You had no water in your fire hydrant, sir.
Of Donald Trump. That's why we're standing tall with 22 lawsuits. That's why we did a special session. And you guys, many of you called me out as it's too extreme. Shouldn't you be working with Donald Trump during his transition when I called that special session? And we've used those resources to file over 22 lawsuits. We're filing more as we speak. And that included, by the way, $50 million that we set aside, or $25 million specifically for legal aid to help these families. So we had their back because we knew something would happen. But I got to say, I never expected Donald Trump to do this and to create the conditions that we're seeing today and threaten to make him even worse by bringing in the military.
Wow, I have so many questions.
You guys, coming from a person who came from another country to the United States, who had to study, who went through Homeland Security, who went through USCIS. It took me 6 years, 5 to 6 years to become a United States citizen. I waited. I didn't cross in here illegally. I didn't know. Because if your first act into the United States is illegally crossing into the United States, and then when you come in here, you ask for due process, why didn't you follow the due process to come into the United States in the first place? So you don't follow due process to come inside, but you want due process as soon as you're inside? I don't know, ladies and gentlemen. I can't understand what's going on here. It's mind-blowing.
There's some kind of dumpster, some kind of container that they were successful in being able to set ablaze. We should also point out that we watched as 5 Waymo cars. Whoa. Okay, so now we're doing donuts.
In reverse?
In the intersection.
In reverse, and someone throwing rocks. Okay, what's going on there? That looks very strange. Somebody... I don't know what to make of this. This seems so very dangerous. Obviously, these people throwing the rocks are not happy with that person there. I don't know if they felt this person was endangering them. This is a very bizarre scene there. And
okay, California right now is zombie land at this point, because who knows? Shout out to Jet. Thank you for the super chat. Jet says Newsom got an erection for the wildfire. Look, Jet, look, that's it.
Why that person would do those donuts like that in reverse? Was that person trying to send a statement and oh, wow.
Yeah, what's going on? He seems to be having trouble controlling that car, or he's driving erratically on purpose. I think that whomever threw rocks or whatever it was, yeah, he's having trouble controlling that car. Or has decided to go past the those barricades there. This is basically the Alvera Street area, the plaza.
I'm just wondering,
not where traffic typically would go.
Susan, was this person trying to hurt or endanger those that were in the streets there?
I feel like the people in that intersection or near that intersection felt as if, yeah, that this was somebody that was...
Not one of them.
No.
Look at the way this person's driving on the sidewalk. Oh my gosh. This is very scary here. LAPD, FYI, something's going on here with this driver who is that a sidewalk he's driving on?
Well, that's a part of that plaza area of Alvera Street. Right. Not far from the Chinese Museum. And it's clearly not set up for traffic. It was at one point, but now you have all of those balustrades or whatever they're called, the barriers that keep you from driving exactly where he's driving now. And if you've ever been there in an afternoon, oftentimes there will be people that are playing music and dancing. He's going at a pretty high rate of speed.
That is way too fast on a city street where there are people and bicycles of all sorts, whether you're with these demonstrations or not. It makes me wonder who this person is and what statement they're trying to make. Are they trying to agitate the people that are out there on the streets at this hour? Look at the way that driver is driving. Is this somebody on drugs? Are they drunk? Who does that? Who drives in reverse like that in the middle of other traffic, endangering innocent people? That's a scary situation in its own right.
Oh, he's out of the car now. He's decided to abandon that vehicle. And what? He's got a hold of a dumpster trying to move it, but unsuccessful. So now he's got to get back in the car. And by the way, I think I saw some shattered glass. I think that the agitators were able to throw a piece of concrete or what have you at him. And he was able broke through the window because then he was throwing things back out again.
Look at the way that driver is driving. That is a very scary scene. It's almost like this person is a rogue person who is out of his mind. And look at the crowd.
Everybody's coming towards him because he's stuck. He's stuck there. Now he's going to do things quite illegally to get out of the way. But it's clear that he was trying to go after the agitators or whomever is left over in the downtown area. And look at that. People are throwing things at him. So apparently the sentiment was, okay, you're not with us. Therefore, you're against us.
Well, look, I mean, the guy was doing donuts in reverse. You could kill anybody like that. He's been driving, it seems to be, very erratically. It makes you wonder what the mindset is of this person. Is it someone who just lost their mind? They just don't care who they hurt. They're trying to make a statement or what? But this is something that I'm surprised that we don't have a police chopper over this one, as in a pursuit of some sort, because this behavior was very, very erratic.
Erratic. He was able to outrun, or thanks to the fact that he's in a vehicle and the other people are on foot. He had to get out of that traffic, so he's decided to back up. And let's see what he's going to do now. Now we're basically, I believe, in the Union Station area, going through Union Station, going through intersections or stop signs.
Going through a stop sign.
What is he doing?
Oh, he sideswiped a bicyclist.
What in the world
is that
is
what
this
happened?
guy doing?
We're talking to our booth right now. So he sideswiped a bicyclist. That's why the crowd got agitated. But his behavior then, I would say, it wasn't necessarily just in response, because he continues to drive erratically and not sure the mindset of this person here. But if they were an innocent person just trying to get out of the way, they're not leaving and getting out of the way in a normal fashion.
No, not at all. When he left that intersection, it was sort of interesting the way he was wobbling. I thought perhaps the car was in some way disabled, but no, that was just his way of being somewhat threatening. But he sideswiped a bicyclist. That's what got the rest of the crowd, those that were on foot outside of the vehicle, against him. Now we're in that place where Skyfox is overhead, but you got that high rise there, so it's going to be difficult to see the vehicle. I wonder if he had any idea that that he was being tracked by a news helicopter.
Again, who knows what went down, how that happened, where a bicyclist was sideswiped? Was it intentional? Did someone get in the way? And then there was a panic scene. But it was very, very bizarre behavior as that person continued to drive around the downtown LA area.
All right. We may have lost that vehicle. Thanks to that big, tall building there. But
well, let us hope this driver either calmed down. Got out of the area, and just was not intentionally trying to hurt anybody, because that is a very scary scenario in itself.
Let me just ask the people in the booth now, did he sideswipe that bicyclist in that intersection where he was doing the backwards donuts? Was that where it happened? Because it was, so he, Okay, so it was after that, after he left the intersection where he was doing the donuts, and then he actually went through Olvera Street, or the Plaza, rather. Is that him there? That could be him. That is him. Okay, so we're back overhead.
Did we just have law enforcement right there? Did he drive right past law enforcement? We can tell that's him because there's damage to the vehicle.
The damage to the vehicle, and I believe the windows, too, were shattered when people started throwing rocks. But my point is the bicyclist got hit after he left that intersection. And how would those people know that, once you get into Chinatown and adjacent to Union Station, how would you know that this vehicle was involved in, the donut situation? But then I guess as soon as he hit that bicyclist, that was enough for pedestrians or those in the area to realize, oh, you need to be stopped.
Is that a drone? I'm sorry, I see this white light and I'm trying to figure out what that is. It's following
could be a drone
him?
these days.
I mean, is that a drone that's kind of keeping an eye on him? I've never seen that before. So anyway, we have this person still driving erratically here, and that is still very concerning. As we see this person, I'm guessing still in the greater downtown LA area, which makes me wonder about his mindset. Remember, he got out of the vehicle, did not seem to have a shirt on, if I have that correctly, and he was banging on that trash dumpster that people had put out into the middle of the street that are protesting, rioting, whatever.
I think he was trying to move it. Like, I don't know if he thought it could be sort of a barrier or something to affect traffic or affect people. But yeah, we're watching that vehicle. I can't tell if it's a crossover or a van or whatever. He has been affected by some traffic now and again, and then he would just back up and turn around and like break a lot of traffic laws. But this is unusual because usually we're used to the fact that there would be a police helicopter overhead, and we talk a lot about, like, what's the want? Why are they tracking him? Why are they over him? And this is a situation where Skyfox is over this vehicle. We witness some of the erratic behavior and erratic driving, but we don't know if law enforcement is involved at all.
And again, I'm watching that white light. I have no idea what it is. It continues to be following this vehicle. It continues to be in our shot.
Yeah, it's so funny, Christine, because you see it on that monitor. I don't see it on this monitor. So it could just be the monitor.
The monitor. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, perhaps you're right. My bad on that. Okay.
But it is unusual.
It is a distracting monitor I'm looking at here, so forgive me if anybody else is seeing this on their monitor. It's a very strange thing. Okay, so let me avert my eyes to another monitor where we see no light here. Okay, so again, what is the mindset of this person, and is this a rogue lone person who's taking matters into their own hands to try to make a statement against those who are still out on the streets?
Exactly. That is the question. And there are definitely people that thought that he's not with them. He's not with the agitators, that he was trying to do something to distract or interrupt what they were doing. At least that's what it appeared to be. He's driving at a high rate of speed, considering he's on a surface street, and made that turn to the left awful quickly. I'm missing the smart navigation so we could tell precisely where he is in the LA area. But he's going at a pretty good clip. No one's near him. Whoa, that was a little too close.
Yeah, so something is not right with this driver. The behavior is way too erratic to be normal. Not sure the area that this driver is in now, but obviously we've pulled away a little bit from the downtown area specifically itself. Looks a little bit more residential here, and not sure where this driver is now headed, but we've seen some very strange behavior. And when we queue up that tape at some point in time, you'll see exactly what we're talking about doing. We've seen a lot of car scenes where they do donuts in the middle of the street, but in reverse.
Right.
That was crazy. With people around?
It wouldn't have surprised me if there were people that got involved and wanted to do a street takeover, but to do it in reverse, and then clearly to not be as a part of the demonstration that's going on right now. It seemed pretty obvious that he wasn't really a part of what is going on.
They were quite upset.
He wanted to object, or, I don't think that necessarily means he's with the police chief and the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, but regardless, don't know his state of mind. It didn't seem as if he's like, I'm with you guys, because instead, protesters started to throw rocks and concrete at him. And I believe it broke the window, because then he started lobbing things back out of the car.
Is this the vehicle stopped? Stopped? Like he drove home? And it's, you know, I don't know if this person got caught up. There he is right there, shirt off. Oh, please don't get back in the car.
Yeah, that's the guy that we watched try to move a dumpster unsuccessfully.
I mean, he's got a sense that there is this helicopter overhead. It's not overly warm out tonight to be without a shirt on in LA. It does cool down at night, so that is bizarre in itself. But obviously the guy pulled over, parked the vehicle in a normal fashion, and perhaps he is out of the vehicle and he's done driving. Let that be. This is very bizarre.
It's very bizarre indeed. So now he's gone into the back. What is he doing? He's pulling out, oh, I just need to shake this shirt or jacket or something, because now I'm going to put on my jacket. Meantime, he left the driver's side door open. Oh, so the reason why, likely, that he's shaking that out is because I'm pretty sure the window on the driver's side was broken at the least.
Left the door open. Oh, no, getting into another vehicle.
Oh, that's
all right,
interesting.
So I'm sensing this person has no, they're just opening car doors. Is this their vehicle?
So he was shaking out that jacket, I believe, because it was full of shattered glass from the window. But what is that? So that car is on, and he decided to open the door and throw that jacket in. Meantime, he did leave the door open on the driver's side.
He's talking,
approaching somebody.
Police.
Oh, okay, police are involved. They are indeed aware and involved.
Well, this is a good thing. If they were watching our coverage here on Fox 11, we had it all. So police have stopped this guy from getting behind the wheel of that second vehicle or back behind his own vehicle. Now they can question him to say, who are you and what the heck were you doing?
What were you doing? And now we have an idea of specifically where he is. Vanna Street and East 1st Street. So just outside the downtown Los Angeles area. It's odd. He was not very, he didn't resist arrest. He didn't seem all that surprised either. The police suddenly came upon him. Meantime, the woman that he was talking to, police are saying, no, you need to back up. You need to back up. And she looks like she's objecting to all of this.
I'm not sure. Is she? No, she seems to be talking with that officer. Okay, they're back.
In the meantime, he's like, everybody's got to back up. Everybody's got to back up.
Yeah. Well,
he looks like he's a sheriff's deputy, not LAPD.
Again, it's not an overly warm night to be on the streets like that in shorts with no shirt, and that behavior, you have to wonder about that behavior. Obviously some damage to the vehicle. Talking with people on our team who actually have a better viewpoint of this, he definitely did hit a bicyclist or sideswipe a bicyclist in some fashion, hoping that person is okay. That was after that bizarre behavior of doing those donuts in reverse in the middle of an intersection there.
All right, should we go back to Matthew Seedorf and see what the situation is near City Hall? You see a lot more sheriff's deputies in that skirmish line there.
It's not on IFB, stand by.
And we have been watching as more LASD deputies have arrived on scene. That's in part to relieve the LAPD. Some of their officers, I'm sure, have been working long hours.
All of this is so unnecessary. None of this would have happened if Gavin Newsom would have just said, okay, ICE, do your job. And if the culture in California, Los Angeles to be precise, isn't so lefty or so awkward, because these are law enforcement officers trying to get criminals out of your city. Yet you're saying, leave our city. We love it like that. What? It's called brainwashing and TDS. Okay. Now, this right here, this video right here should not be allowed on American soil, because what message are you sending to the enemies? What message are you sending to the enemies of the United States if this is allowed on American soil, ladies and gentlemen?
And this is not just
if this is allowed on American soil, what do you expect the enemies to be thinking about? If you can allow people in America to spit on the American flag. Look at that. Look at that. Look at that. This should not be allowed on American soil. You hate America so much, yet you are in America. Why don't you go back to your country, your home country? Look, me, I love the United States. I believe the United States is the greatest country in the world. That's why I came here. So I would not be stupid and foolish and irresponsible and ungrateful enough to be burning the flag of a country that helped me find my daughter. What in the world are these people thinking? Some of these kids were born in the United States. Some of them, their father came in here illegally. And you have the opportunity to be in the United States, to find your passion, to live your dreams, to take advantage of this system to your own advantage. Yet, this is what you do. You burn down the flag of a country that is providing shelter for you. I mean, how is this even allowed to happen on American soil? Why would you burning down the flag of the United States? People died for that flag. Okay? People died for that flag. Now check this out. Check this out. This is so crazy, ladies and gentlemen. Absolutely crazy. This one is screaming Allah Akbar in front of the ICE agent.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Takbir! Takbir! Come to Saudi! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! Takbir!
In America, ladies and gentlemen, this is America. This is in like Syria or Afghanistan or Iraq. This is Los Angeles, California, United States. Awesome. Peaceful protests. Awesome. All right, here we go. I'm tired of the
President Trump
LA
is deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to California amid protests over his immigration raids. Just the latest huge development in a week that saw the president having a big falling out with the person who was his closest political ally, the richest man in the world. Here with me now is another Trump close ally, Republican Senator Markwayne Mullin of Oklahoma. Senator, thank you so much for being here. Starting with what's happening in California,
thanks for having me on.
Thank you. The last time the National Guard was federalized was 1992 during the LA riots. Then it was done at the governor's request. In fact, the president hasn't unilaterally federalized the National Guard since LBJ sent troops to Alabama in 1965 to protect civil rights marchers. That's according to the Brennan Center. So my question for you is, why does this situation justify the president bypassing California's governor entirely?
Well, you got two issues here. You have a very weak, lawless, bleeding governor and Governor Newsom, who's not enforcing the nation's laws. And then you had a Biden administration for the last 4 years that didn't enforce our immigration laws, which is why we need to pass this one big, beautiful bill so we can secure our border and focus on getting these illegals out of the country. Regardless of what they may be doing right now, they entered the country illegally, and therefore they are illegal and they are criminals and they need to be deported. And I don't know why a governor would want to try to protect illegal activity inside a state. And the president has made it very clear. If the governor or the mayor of the city isn't willing to protect the citizens of his state or the city, then the president will. The American people elected him to restore the law and order back to our streets, and that's why murders are down. That's why people are optimistic today about the future of our country, and that's why we need to continue this step by passing one big, beautiful bill.
Senator, the LA County Police say that they have it under control. And Governor Newsom says sending National Guard.
Right?
Governor Newsom says that the National Guard, at least sending them, is purposely inflaming and will only escalate tensions there.
Well, words are cheap, especially when you got video. And so you asked me, did it look like it was or I'll ask you, did it look like it was under control? It doesn't. It is absolutely not in control. You saw rioters throwing rocks, throwing fireworks, being extremely aggressive towards not just federal agents, but even the county and the local PD that was there. So does it look like it's under control? Absolutely not. The difference between what you're seeing during the riots back in, 96? I forget what year 92. That was, to what we are today. 92 to where we are today is that the governor was actually working with the president of the United States. Now you have a governor that isn't. And once again, California became basically a sanctuary state, and the American people don't want that. And that's why President Trump is pushing really hard for us to pass this bill, because it will secure the border and we can start deporting these illegals. I mean, think about this. They were literally out there protesting, carrying a foreign flag. That is absolutely insane. I mean, they're not just peaceful protesters. These are illegals. These are exactly why the president is trying to secure our border.
All right. Well, carrying a flag is not illegal, as you know. And I just want to be clear.
I just want to be flag while you're attacking law enforcement. It's pretty bad.
That's a different question, but I just want to just state for the record that what did happen in 1992 was so different from what we're seeing now. I mean, that was a real riot that went all across the city of Los Angeles after a verdict in the Rodney King case. This is a situation where the LA County Police,
Dana,
it's not good, but they're saying that they have it under control, and the president is sending national troops, federal troops, in a way that
we can look at
hasn't
this
been
and
done
we
in
can
a long
obviously
time.
see that it is not under control. It's not under control. You and I both can see that. It's not under control. And a riot is a riot. They're throwing all types of objects at law enforcement, and the president is absolutely right. I can't say this enough.
She's such a tool. She's such a tool, ladies and gentlemen. You can see that the cars are burning American flag. What are you saying, Dana? What are you saying? For once, can you just say it the way it is? No, you can't.
This is why the American people elected President Trump, because we are moving in the right direction, and we are laser focused on continuing to do that, and that is why we want to pass this big piece of legislation that is going to move the American people even farther down the track and getting us back on track and getting us away from the disastrous policies of the Biden administration.
So let's talk about that bill, sir. You're talking about the very important piece of the president's agenda, his big legislation that is before you in the Senate right now. There are several Senate Republicans, your GOP colleagues, who say that they're concerned that the Medicaid cuts in the bill will jeopardize funding for rural hospitals. Almost 1 in 4 people in your state of Oklahoma rely on Medicaid. The head of the Oklahoma Hospital Association says that these cuts could lead to some hospitals failing or forcing them to scale back services they provide. Does that concern you?
Let's talk about what we're actually doing, because Bernie Sanders and the Democrat Party, they're absolutely lying about us kicking people off.
These are
We're
Republicans, not Bernie
people
Sanders.
off that deserve that. Hold on, we're not talking about people that deserve and qualify for Medicaid or Medicare. What we're doing is getting rid of the waste and fraud. There's over 6 million people on Medicaid right now that do not qualify underneath current policies. They didn't qualify underneath the Biden policies, but yet the Biden administration allowed them to come on, and they're robbing Medicaid blind, and therefore it's almost becoming unsustainable for those that actually deserve it. Anybody that qualifies for Medicaid, they're not going to see a reduction in benefits. They're not going to see a reduction in coverage. All we're doing is removing the people that are frauding the American taxpayers out of health care. That's it. And no one can say anything different. President Trump has made it very clear we're not reducing or cutting Medicaid benefits.
But Senator, a lot of
Republicans
Republicans
have said the same thing. We're removing the waste and fraud.
Senator, I'm sorry, a lot of Republicans who you serve with, who are like-minded in many ways, they don't agree with you. They're reading the same bill and they say, we believe that there are people in our state who will get hurt because of these cuts. They will get kicked off of Medicaid, or at least their benefits will be diminished.
I have talked to Josh Hawley, who is very outspoken about this. I got a great relationship with Josh. Josh is doing exactly what he should be doing. He's protecting to make sure that those that need it are protected from it. There's nothing wrong with him questioning the bill. The fact is, you can't point to anyone that's losing coverage that deserves and qualifies for the care. But he's being very cautious, and I respect him for doing that. But we have made it very clear, and the president has made it clear, we're not kicking people off that qualify for Medicare and Medicaid coverage. We're just getting rid of the waste and fraud. You can read it yourself. Dana, I bet you have read it, and you can't find where we're reducing coverage for anybody. We are simply kicking the waste and fraud out of the Medicaid and Medicare system that are literally robbing the taxpayers of the American people.
Okay. I mean, if this passes the way it does, I would be interested in coming back to you and talking to you about what happens in the rural hospitals in your state that you've worked so hard to protect. I do want to ask you about the blow-up. I want to ask you about this blow-up between President Trump and Elon Musk, the world's richest man, the president of the United States, trading insults online, kind of like teenagers. According to the Washington Post, there was an argument earlier this year between Musk and the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent. Literally came to blows. It had to be broken up. Are the men leading our country letting their emotions get in the way of governing?
Well, first of all, Dana, as a former professional fighter, I've learned a long time ago, don't get between two fighters. The fact is we're focused on passing this bill, and the American people elected President Trump and put the Republican people in place to move our country forward and get away from the disastrous policies of the Biden administration and move forward. That's what we're focused on.
So
don't
get in the way. You're not picking sides?
Run a rabbit trail. We're going to be focused on it. Sorry?
Don't get in the way. You're not picking sides?
President Trump is a friend of mine, but I don't need to get. I can have friends that have disagreements, but here's what I do know. My wife and I dearly love each other, and every now and then, well, actually quite often sometimes, she disagrees with me. But that doesn't mean that we can't stay focused on what's best for our family. Right now, there may be a disagreement, but we're laser focused on what's best for the American people.
Okay, Senator, thank you so much. We're out of time. I appreciate you being on.
Dana.
I want to bring in Independent Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont. Sir, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to start where I left off with the Congresswoman. What is your response to the fact that the president has ordered 2,000 National Guard troops to California?
Look, Dana, we have a president who is moving this country rapidly into authoritarianism. He is suing media who criticizes him. He is going after law firms who have clients who were against him. He's going after universities that teach courses that he doesn't like. He's threatening to impeach judges who rule against him, and he's usurping the powers of the United States Congress. This guy wants all of the power. He does not believe in the Constitution. He does not believe in the rule of law. My understanding is that the governor of California, the mayor of the city of Los Angeles, did not request the National Guard, but he thinks he has a right to do anything he wants. And I would say that to a large degree, the future of this country rests with a small number of Republicans in the House and Senate who know better, who do know what the Constitution is about. And it's high time they stood up for our Constitution and the rule of law. You know, we just celebrated a few days ago, June 6th, the American landing at Normandy, which began the invasion of Europe to defeat fascism and Nazism. Those guys died. They gave up their lives to defend democracy, not to have an all-powerful ruler in the United States of America.
Senator, you mentioned on a very different topic whether Republicans would stand up to the president. There definitely is some clashing politically, internally, among Republicans on the president's legislative agenda, specifically the giant spending and tax bill before the United States Senate. In order to try to fix some of those internal GOP differences, Senate Republicans are eyeing changes to Medicare. We know there are also $700 billion worth of cuts in the existing bill to Medicaid. Is there anything that you and Democrats can do to stop it, since you just don't have the votes?
Well, let's be clear, Dana. What these guys want to do is, according to the CBO, throw 15 million Americans off the health care they now have, on top of the 85 million Americans who are currently uninsured or underinsured, and on top of the fact that we are the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. As you may have seen, there was a report, a study done by Yale University and the University of Pennsylvania. They said 50,000 people a year are going to die because of their lack of health care. This impacts not only individuals, it impacts nursing homes, hospitals, it'll impact community health centers. And you know why they are doing this? They are doing this so they can give $600 billion in tax breaks to the top 1%, $400 billion in tax breaks to large profitable corporations. This bill is an outrage, and the American people have got to stand up and fight back. You're asking what we are doing. We are mobilizing people throughout this country, especially in marginal districts that have Republican members of Congress, and demand that people ask their members of Congress, do you support tax breaks for billionaires and throwing kids and elderly people off of the health care that they have?
So you were talking mostly about Medicaid, which is already in this bill, those cuts that you were describing. One of the issues is Medicare, whether or not there will be changes in order for the Republicans to get votes amongst themselves. Medicare is one of the biggest drivers of federal spending. Are you concerned about America's runaway national debt, and would changes to entitlements like Medicare be necessary to try to rein that in?
Donna, let's talk about health care for a moment. As I hope most people know, not only are we the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people, we are spending over twice as much per capita on health care as the people of any other country. The function of the American health care system is to make huge profits for the insurance companies and the drug companies. And if the Republicans are serious about cutting health care costs, you don't throw people off of Medicaid or Medicare. You have the guts to take on the insurance companies who are ripping off the American people every single day. We're spending $14,500 per person on health care. Outrageous, unsustainable. By far the highest prices in the world. But the Republicans would rather throw people off of Medicare, children off of Medicaid, rather than take on the insurance companies or the power of the drug companies.
Senator, I want to ask you about a situation, a drama that really sort of engulfed everyone and everything here in Washington, which is the breakup between Donald Trump and Elon Musk this week. Some Democrats are trying to recruit Musk to their side, to your side. Semaphore reported that Congressman Ro Khanna spoke with one of Elon Musk's senior confidants about whether Musk might want to help Democrats in the midterms. Do you see Elon Musk as someone who Democrats should work with?
No, I think Musk has evolved over the years. My understanding is he actually voted for Obama, I think, in 2008. But over the years, he has developed into a right-wing extremist. The issue, and I think the drama, the story of what happened last week is you are living increasingly in an oligarchic society. And Musk said to Trump, hey, listen, I spent $270 million to get you elected. I bought you the presidency because we have a corrupt campaign finance system and billionaires can do that. And Trump said, well, I gave you the right to run the government for 3 or 4 months, but I don't like the guy you want to run NASA, and we're going to get rid of him. And Musk got upset. This is a fight between oligarchs. It's a fight about power among the few, and it's really an embarrassment to those of us who believe in democracy.
Here we go, oligarchs.
Well, I was going to ask you if Musk is right when he said the only reason Donald Trump won in November is because he donated $270 million to his campaign. But I know the answer. Your answer is yes.
Well, you got a corrupt campaign finance system. But by the way, it's not just Republicans. Democratic billionaires do that as well. That's why we need to get rid of this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision, move to public funding of elections so that billionaires do not buy our democracy.
Senator Bernie Sanders, always good to see you. Thank you so much for coming on.
I was waiting for him to say oligarch. Oligarchs. Oligarchs. I was waiting for him to say that. He finally said that. Of course. He's been talking about oligarchs for what? Since the 70s. Oligarchs. And he has done nothing about it.
My next guest has been one of the most ardent GOP critics of President Trump's tax and spending cut bill. Here with me now is Republican Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. Senator, I want to get to that in 1 second, but I do want to ask about what's going on in California. The president deploying 2,000 National Guard troops to Los Angeles against the wishes of California's governor. His defense secretary says active duty Marines may also be mobilized. And during the 2020 George Floyd protests, you said you supported governors using the National Guard to maintain order, but you did warn, quote, you really don't want to send in the U.S. military. Would President Trump deploying active duty troops cross that line?
Well, good morning, Dana. First of all, we have the experience in Wisconsin where Governor Evers refused to call it the National Guard, and he let Kenosha burn, and then President Trump sent in the National Guard, and Kenosha stopped burning. So the reason you send in massive manpower is to prevent violence. What we're seeing in California is violent, and unfortunately you don't have leaders in California that are willing to prevent violence and protect federal law enforcement. This is all about protecting law enforcement as they go about their very difficult and very dangerous job. So I completely support President Trump in doing this because he does not have a partner in Governor Newsom or the mayor.
So there's the National Guard, federalizing the National Guard, and then there's a separate question, which has not happened, but the defense secretary tweeted holding out the possibility of Marines going in, active duty Marines to be mobilized. You would be okay with that?
Well, my guess is the National Guard ought to take care of the situation. Certainly did here in Wisconsin, Kenosha. Once they were deployed here, the violence ended. So again, you provide massive manpower to prevent violence. And I would be nice if Democrat politicians wouldn't keep stirring it up and keep asking people to go out there and protest against lawful law enforcement actions. That's kind of hard to stomach.
So the Marines you don't think should go in, or you're saying you don't think it would be necessary?
It won't be necessary. Bring the National Guard. That's what happened here in Wisconsin, and it worked. I'm quite sure it'll work in California.
You are, as I mentioned, one of the leading GOP holdouts on President Trump's tax and spending cut bill. It does include billions of dollars to improve border barriers, to expand immigration enforcement, the kind of thing that we're seeing in California and elsewhere. You just heard Senator Mullins say the situation in California shows the need to pass the bill quickly. Do you agree?
Well, first of all, Republicans are having to, clean up the enormous messes left behind by President Biden. The open border, that's what's happening in California there. And of course, the massive deficit spending, which sparked 40-year high inflation. It's not easy. It's easy to be a Democrat. Just spend money, mortgage our kids' future, promise people, never deliver on the promises, never get held accountable by the media. So it's easy to be a Democrat. It's pretty hard doing what we're trying to do. So I'm a big supporter of President Trump. He's doing things that no other president would do that need to be done. As far as it goes, I'm a supporter of what's in the big, beautiful bill. My problem is it's just because it's so hard, it's not going far enough. And if we just pass this, if it's a one and done, we will not be really addressing the major problem here in terms of massive growing deficits and debt.
Not going far enough in that, right? You're not going far enough in cutting spending. So, but you do want to increase the spending on, on border and immigration enforcement?
Yes, that's the top priority of government, is to protect Americans, to defend our border, defend our nation. So unfortunately, the Democrats opened up the border, millions of people flooding this country, some of them violent criminals, violent gang members, members of transnational criminal organizations, human drug and sex traffickers. That's what President Trump's having to deal with. That's what Democrats left for us. So again, that takes money. And unfortunately, they also pretty well mortgaged our children's future with massive deficits. President Biden had an average deficit of $1.9 trillion. Obama, his last term, $550 billion average deficits. Trump had to do deals with Democrats, 810. Then, of course, we had the massive bipartisan spending spree in 2020, but we should have come down to a reasonable pre-pandemic level of spending and deficits. We didn't do that. The Democrats and President Biden just continue to spend. And again, now it's completely out of control. We can't accept this as a new normal.
You are, our understanding, Senate Republicans are considering changes to Medicare to offset some of the costs on the spending and tax cut bill. We're talking, of course, about a program used by more than 68 million Americans, most of them seniors. Is that something that you are, in fact, working on?
What we are trying to do is take a look at the abuses of the system that put at risk the benefits for the people who truly deserve them. For example, there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal written by a father of a 17-year-old autistic child who's on a 10-year waiting list for home care because he's being crowded out by single, working age, able-bodied, childless adults. That's what Obamacare did. And by the way, that's the part of Medicaid we're trying to reform is the Obamacare portion. Now they call it Medicaid Advantage. For every dollar the state puts into a procedure for a disabled child, the federal government kicks in $1.33.
So that's Medicaid.
For every dollar
what about
the state
Medicare?
Puts in for a but listen, because this is important.
Okay.
For every dollar the state puts in for a single adult childless, the government puts in the federal government puts in $9. That has led to all kinds of waste and abuse. There's upcoding inside of Medicare, which also is putting at threat the benefits for people that need it. So again, there is all kinds of waste, fraud, and abuse of these programs. That's what Republicans are trying to root out. That's what President Trump is willing to do. Democrats, of course, don't care. They just don't care about spending money and mortgaging our kids' future. This is hard what we're trying to do. I think in good faith we're trying to work together, but it's very difficult.
Before I let you go, you've had some pretty harsh words about this bill. You sound like you're warming to it as you have conversations. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I've had harsh words about the fact that we're mortgaging our kids' future, that we've incurred on average $1.9 trillion deficits, and we're going to incur another $22 trillion deficits over the next 10 years, and that's probably a rosy scenario. I've had harsh words for our current situation, and my only problem with this bill is it just doesn't go far enough to address that big mess.
And you're feeling like you're in a better situation with it now, based on the talks that you've had at the White House and elsewhere?
Well, nothing's really changed. I'll be sitting down with the White House economic team. I'm finishing up a report. I'll be issuing that next week that lays out exactly what this is. It gives different growth scenarios, showing how difficult it is going to be to grow our way out of this. I'm all for economic growth. We have to address spending. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, and this bill just doesn't go far enough to address that problem.
Thank you so much for being here, Senator. I really appreciate it.
Tonight,
Okay, so I don't know if you guys actually follow Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek is actually doing something different in Ohio. If he happens to be the next governor of Ohio, he's changing the game. He's proposing something that I think the United States has to propose for every American child born from 2026 or 2027 upward. Maybe not next year, or in 2 years' time, but if Vivek actually wins in Ohio, he may be the greatest governor to ever live in the United States. And this is just, most people would not know it now because, of course, people don't really do their own research. But if Vivek Ramaswamy wins Ohio and is the next governor, Ohio is going to be one, if not the best state in the United States, project in the next 6 years. It's unstoppable because what he's saying and the things he's saying he will do, that man is just absolutely brilliant. I thought he was going to be the one to lead the Doge team, but for some reason Elon was, which I have nothing against Elon. I think Elon is smart. Of course, I mean, if you can land a rocket, you are smart. You know what I mean? But when it comes to politics and actually understanding numbers and deficit and all that stuff, Vivek Ramaswamy is just on a different level. And I think this guy may be the answer for the United States come maybe 2032. He may be the answer, or maybe 2036. I don't know. But Vivek is one guy that people really never talks about. People never talk about Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't know, maybe because he's not the ideal whatever politician or alpha politician or someone who wants to stay in the news media every day, any day. But Vivek is just absolutely different. If you put Vivek, JD, and Marco Rubio, I would probably vote for Vivek first before I pick Marco and then JD. Marco is great, absolutely great. JD, phenomenal. But Vivek Ramaswamy, he's not a typical politician. He doesn't want you to like him. He's not trying to be, he's just Vivek. You know what I mean? I feel like Vivek is a fresh air. It's like when you breathe in this fresh air, that's what Vivek Ramaswamy brings to my mind. He's just a breath of fresh air. And I know one day he may get his chance. Maybe 2036 or whatever. But Vivek Ramaswamy, if you do your research on Vivek, you would realize that this man is on a different level entirely. Now, can he win election? That's another thing. Because people don't really, when you're not in the news media and causing issues and problems, and nobody really cares. But when you stay in the news media, then people vote for you. But I don't know how he's going to actually win an election because he's so reserved. He's very reserved and smart and brilliant. I would vote for Vivek any day.
Live on the ground, we have Fox News correspondent Christina Coleman, who's been there all day. Christina.
Hi, Alicia. Yeah, we're here in downtown L.A. near the federal building where over 1,000 rioters protested on Friday, according to DHS. And take a look at that. Just right there past over the intersection, you can see some of the flames and smokes. That is because at least 2 Waymo vehicles have been set on fire here during these anti-ICE protests. There's a number.
Man, I'm tired of this protest. Let's move on. Let's move on, ladies and gentlemen, because this right is just depressing with the whole BS they got going on. I mean, simple thing like just sort out your state. Tell your people to go home. Jesus, can't you handle simple things? You cannot handle simple things. So why are you in position of a leader? A leader is supposed to lead. These folks cannot lead. Listen to Karen Bass.
Switch gears here really quickly as we're hearing from LA Mayor Karen Bass as anti-ICE protesters clash with law enforcement. Let's listen into this here on Live Now.
About this is about another agenda. It's not about public safety. There's clearly no plan and there is clearly no policy. I want the people of Los Angeles to know that we stand with all Angelenos, no matter where you were born. The First Amendment right gives you the ability, again, to protest peacefully, but it does not give you the right to be violent, to create chaos, or to vandalize property, and that will not be tolerated.
Shush. It's already tolerated, lady. It's already tolerated. They're burning down flags, burning cars. It's not going to be tolerated. Okay. Oh, man. Oh, my God. These folk. Literally, they're burning down flags. It's not going to be tolerated. They're burning down cars. It's not going to be tolerated. Throwing rocks at ICE agent. It's not going to be tolerated.
On all Angelenos to continue expressing your right, your anger, your outrage, but to do it peacefully. And I just have to say that all of you were there Friday. Everybody knows what happened Friday. A workplace, several workplaces were targeted and raids took place. Now, in the beginning, the administration said they were just looking for dangerous felons, violent people. It's hard to say that that's what they found at a workplace or in a Home Depot parking lot. When this happens, it terrifies people. It sends a sense of fear and chaos in our city. And you well remember a few years ago in the last administration that kids were afraid to go to school. Parents were afraid to go to work. This impacts all of our city. You can't terrify the workforce, and then expect for people to get the jobs done. So if you think about a father that went into a factory and now his family doesn't know where he is, the detainees have not been allowed to speak to legal counsel. That is a marked departure from what has happened in the past. When you think of a mother that might be working in a household, taking care of children on another side of town, that impacts that family as well as her family. And so this is something that I think should not be happening in our city. And I join with the governor in appealing to the administration to rescind the order to federalize the National Guard and allow the National Guard to come back under the control of the governor. So with that, we can open it up for questions. Yes.
We're going to start with Lolita and then we'll go to Chase.
Mayor, these protests that were demonstrations, I should say, did start out peacefully. You've been here since in the morning.
Right.
But then they scattered and people were moved around. Where is the LAPD in terms of being here to be able to deal with that and maybe stop them before they get over?
Sure. Well, I think that basically they were overrun. But what is happening now is that the freeway is cleared. The California Highway Patrol, as you know, is in charge of the freeways. So they have moved all of the protesters back. They still might be there, but they are beginning to be dispersed. But LAPD is on the perimeter, so LAP is actively involved. You know that there were hundreds of protesters on the freeway and thousands of protesters off the freeway. So there is a joint collaboration going with the CHP, the LAPD, and then frankly the National Guard. But you also know that the National Guard is deployed to protect federal property. So there is a National Guard troops in Westwood at the federal building and also here downtown.
Next question to Chase.
Mayor Bass, have you reached out directly to the federal government, or is this you doing so right now with the media here? Have you tried to reach out?
No, my disappointment is I've been talking to the federal government for days. I was hoping to prevent this situation from happening. I was trying to encourage the administration that if they deployed the National Guard in Los Angeles, it would create a sense of chaos. It's the last thing our city needs. Our city is still trying to recover from the wildfires. And you just think about how so many people were impacted by that. And that's an example of where the administration was helpful. And to go from that situation to where we are now is just really tragic. And I think it's so unfortunate. It's the last thing Los Angeles needs.
When you say you've reached out to the federal government, have you reached to President Trump?
No, I did not reach out to President Trump directly. I spoke to his chief of staff. I talked to Tom Holman. I talked to the U.S. Attorney. So I've talked to several members of the administration.
Next question, Matthew. Yeah, I know you've been watching these protests. First off, what do you see when you're watching this? And I know that you've mentioned being worried about the safety of the protesters, but are you also worried about members of law enforcement in the middle of this?
Well, I'm worried about everybody. I'm worried about members of law enforcement. I'm worried about the safety of the people who are peacefully protesting. I'm worried about the businesses that might get vandalized. I'm worried about the vandalism that took place around the federal building. All of that. We do not need to see our city torn apart. And the idea that the federal government that should be assisting us is a contributing factor, I think is very tragic. When I see the protesters, I know that so many people are affected by this. Their families are affected by this. People are terrified.
How do you think that vandalism impacts the overall message of the protests?
Well, I mean, I first of all, I think protests need to be peaceful, period. And any time it deteriorates into violence, that is a problem, and it absolutely messes with the overall message.
Next question right here in white.
Yeah, hi, Mayor. George Reuters. My question is, can you share a little bit about the conversations you've had?
From the beginning, it was never peaceful. Standing in front of ICE car and banging the hood and saying, "We want you out of here. We don't want you here. F you, ICE." That's already not a protest. The protest is get aboard, okay? My daughter drew me a picture. So this is what you do. You go this way, and you write whatever you want to write on your board, and stand by the side of the road, not blocking traffic. That is protesting. Scream all you want. Scream all you want, but do not be blocking the road where people go to work in. Don't be doing that. Not to talk about throwing rocks at ICE agents, literally getting criminals out of your city.
With the governor, and how long you expect for the National Guard to actually be in?
You know what? Thanks for asking me that, because we're hearing all of sorts of information. We're hearing that the raids could continue. We're hearing that the National Guard is going to be here. So it's uncertain. But that's exactly the problem, because we don't need in this city to go to sleep tonight and wake up in the morning and find out about people running through Home Depot parking lots being chased by ICE officers, or people going to work, or children at school. So we don't need any of that in our city right now. Our city's trying to heal. Our city is trying to rebuild. Our city does not need to be torn apart with a provocative measure from the federal government.
We're going to go right here, and then we'll go right here.
The reality is people seem to still be getting violent. Trump plan to deal with that as we move forward.
If people get violent, if people break the law, they will be subject to arrest, and they will be held accountable. It's as simple as that. So peaceful protest is what is needed. Peaceful protest is a part of our American tradition.
Right here. Mayor,
But it has never been peaceful. Mayor Karen Bass. It was never peaceful. You saw it. You saw it. There's video proof. Oh, peaceful protest. It was never peaceful. It was never peaceful. So what are you talking about? Do your job and protect the people of Los Angeles. That's why they voted you in. That's why they voted for you to be their mayor. Protect your people. But no, you can't. You can't even put water in the fire hydrant. How can you protect your people? You ain't got water to put in the fire hydrant.
The U.S. Attorney seems resolute that he's ready to continue regardless of what's happened over the last 2 or 3 days. In your conversations with him, has there been any kind of attempted compromise or sort of kind of lowering the temperature, at least till things cool off locally if they want to continue, or are they just doing it regardless of how everyone else feels?
Well, I mean, I think what we see now is they're doing it regardless of how anyone else feels. My conversation with the U.S. Attorney, though, was not focused on that.
You're going to go, Frank?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh, hi, Frank.
It appears that the LAPD is cooperating with ICE in this operation outside the Metropolitan Detention Center. They moved in, there was a peaceful protest. The LAPD moved the people back using flashbang and less than lethal munitions. Comment on that, because
sure.
The LAPD is not supposed to be cooperating with us.
Sure. Well, first of all, I'm not sure that LAPD was involved with the flashbangs. But anyway, let me just say that what happened there is that when one branch of law enforcement says they need help, another branch of law enforcement is going to respond and is obligated to respond. And so the minute that protest left the federal building, then that's when LAPD were involved. So the cooperation that you're referring to, I believe, is the cooperation around coordinating with ICE in terms of raiding workplaces or arresting people who are undocumented.
Right here in the back.
Hi, what's your exact understanding of the timeline for how long the National Guard is going to be here? How long the raids are going to continue? Are there going to be daily raids?
I have no exact timeline. I cannot tell you that. That's part of the problem, right? We do not know. I have heard a variety of days.
Man, this is what she always says. We cannot tell you that. I do not know. What do you know then? What do you know? When the wildfires began last year, after Christmas or something like that, she was in Ghana. This lady was in Ghana. She was in Ghana, ladies and gentlemen. She was in Ghana when the wildfires began. Of course you don't know.
Weeks. I certainly hope that this is over. The last thing this city needs is civil unrest. And the last thing this city needs is civil unrest that's provoked.
To follow up, so I've seen LAPD fire point blank foam bullets, rubber bullets into the ground, but in some cases directly at protesters. Can you speak about what kind of orders are under in terms of handling people protesting?
I can't in terms of the specific orders that are being given by the chief or the other commanding officers.
So may we be speaking then to Chief Donald?
I'm going to speak to him in the next few minutes.
Okay, great.
Yes,
so
I'm leaving from here to meet with him.
Great. What is then the plan for tomorrow? Because let's say presumably this does not happen.
Right. Well, you know, I think one thing is that because our city has always had a very robust immigrant rights movement and infrastructure and institutions that have been around for several decades, there is a history of having peaceful protests here. Now, you know, like any crowd, if we're talking about after an athletic event, everybody celebrates. There's always a handful of people that tend to be at the end and tend to hang around and might get into mischief and violence. But that's not the people who are putting on the protests. I tell you that to say that when those protests have been organized, they've been organized in a proper way. The problem is what happens at the end, and that's one thing that is difficult with crowd control, whether it is a political protest or whether it is a football game.
Did you say you talked to Tom Homan?
Yes, I did talk to Tom Homan.
What did he tell you?
Well, he just listened. I mean, the main thing he said was he appreciated that there was a call for no violence. I'm not exactly sure what was expected, but, you know, I was encouraging him not to deploy the National Guard. I knew that the order had been given. The president had signed the order to the governor that he was federalizing the National Guard, that 2,000 troops were going to be deployed, but that didn't mean that they would actually be deployed onto our streets. So my conversation with him was trying to encourage to prevent the deployment. Obviously, that did not work.
So maybe the mayor's going to meeting with the police chief and anybody else, or just the police chief?
The police chief, the sheriff, and the governor.
Quickly, Mayor, about peaceful protests. We're hearing the noises outside as this crowd is getting closer and presumably more violent as they're coming up through the streets here? I know it's nice to talk about peaceful protests.
That's not peaceful, what was happening. It's not peaceful for people to be on the highways. It's not peaceful for people to throw rocks or bottles. That's not peaceful.
Oh, for real?
So then how do we reconcile the difference? Obviously, there's frustration with the Trump administration.
For real?
The Feds, but as LAPD and the Sheriff's Department try to distance themselves from the actions of these immigration actions and work being done, they're against authority in a lot of ways. They're standing outside City Hall, this is your office. It's not necessarily against you. How do you distance yourself but also kind of try to keep it peaceful at a time where it's anti-authority?
Well, and let me just tell you that I don't think there's any equivocating on nonviolence. And if you are going to entertain violence, if you are going to try to take over a freeway, then you are going to suffer the consequences of doing that. I don't think that LAPD, the sheriff, and certainly not myself, are not shying away from statements like that.
Any details about what the National Guard mission is going to be?
I'm sorry?
Any details about what the National Guard mission is going to be within LA? Where they're going to be deployed?
Well, all what I know right now is that the mission of the National Guard is to protect federal property and the federal building, which is why you have only seen them there. You have not seen them out in the community or anything like that. And just in terms of, to close, to wrap up, I just have to say that, again, our city has been through a lot since the beginning of the year. And now thinking that there is a large percentage of our city that is terrified, that is not going to know if they go to sleep tonight and they go to work or they go to school, will that be the last day they do that? Will that be the last day they see their family? We can't have this in our city. Los Angeles is a city of immigrants where 50% of the population is Latino. Percentage of the populations are from Asian countries.
So when she says Los Angeles is a city of immigrants, is she saying Los Angeles is a city of illegal immigrants, or Los Angeles is a city of immigrants who are actually legal? Because there are two different things, okay? When you say Los Angeles is a city of immigrants, are you saying Los Angeles is a city of legal immigrants who are here legally, or you're saying Los Angeles is a city of illegal immigrants? You got to be clear, Miss Karen Bass.
Know if they go to sleep tonight and they go to work or they go to school, will that be the last day they do that? Will that be the last day they see their family? We can't have this in our city. Los Angeles is a city of immigrants where 50% of the population is Latino. Percentage of the populations are from Asian countries and from all over the world. And we embrace all Angelenos. It doesn't matter where you came from or when you got here. But the most important thing right now is that our city be peaceful. And so protests and expressing your, fears, your beliefs is appropriate to do, but it is just not appropriate for there to be violence. And I don't want people to fall into the chaos that I believe is being created by the administration completely unnecessarily. Thank you very much.
This lady right here.
We're getting an on-camera up.
So I want to just take an opportunity to speak directly to the people of Los Angeles, clarify LAPD's roles and the events that have been playing out over these past couple of days. This includes our response to protests, our public safety responsibilities, and recent claims that you've seen made by some federal officials. Today I met with Governor Newsom, Mayor Bass, U.S. Attorney General of Central District of California, Bill Aseli, and ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons. Let me begin by reaffirming a core principle. The LAPD supports and protects the First Amendment right to free speech. In recent days, many protests across the city have been peaceful, and we thank the community for expressing their views and their frustration in a responsible manner. However, when peaceful demonstrations devolve into acts of vandalism or violence, especially violence directed at innocent people, law enforcement officers, and others, we must respond firmly. An act of violence, whether toward officers, demonstrators, or the public, will be met with swift and lawful action. Our goal is to maintain order without escalating conflict and to protect everybody's right to safety. Recent public statements have misrepresented LAPD's action from an incident the other night. Specifically, there was a claim that LAPD delayed responding to a federal officer's request for assistance by more than 2 hours. When we heard that, I think anybody who's a police officer couldn't believe it, and certainly anyone with LAPD couldn't imagine how that would happen. Well, it didn't happen, and I just want to go into that just a little bit. LAPD was not given advance notice that the federal operations would occur in that area. As a result, we were not pre-positioned to respond immediately to unrest related to those actions. Once the call for assistance came in, LAPD responded within 38 minutes. And that sounds like a long time, but I'll tell you why that is. The response was impacted by traffic, crowd density in the area with unrest occurring, hazardous conditions caused by tear gas that was previously deployed by federal agents at that location. Many of our officers, because it was put together in a mobile field force configuration without advance notice, were not equipped with gas masks. But despite these challenges, we moved in quickly and as safely as possible. At no point did LAPD ignore or intentionally delay any request for help. I also want to be unequivocally clear. The Los Angeles Police Department does not participate in or coordinate with Immigration and Customs Enforcement on civil immigration enforcement. We've said this over and over again, and I can't stress it enough for the people in our community who have high levels of anxiety about this issue, that we want everybody to believe and be able to call the LAPD in time of need if they've been a victim of a crime or a witness to a crime. We need that. Otherwise, the system does not work. That has been our policy and remains our policy, and it went into effect in 1979. So 46 years ago, that's been the way we do business. On the other hand, however, when a law enforcement agency, any agency, requests emergency assistance to protect lives, we are obligated to respond, and we do. Public safety is our duty, and we will answer every legitimate call for help from anyone. We recognize that immigration enforcement operations can cause a deep fear and anxiety, particularly in immigrant communities. That's why we're committed to transparency, accountability, and treating every Angelino with respect, regardless of their immigration status. Our job is not to divide communities or politicize law enforcement. Our job is simply to keep everyone safe. I want to express my sincere appreciation to all of our officers and partner agencies for their dedication and professionalism during these very challenging times. Their commitment to upholding the law, even in the face of hostility, is a reflection of the values that we stand for. We're working together to keep everyone safe, our officers and the public alike, and this remains our top priority. We'll continue to support peaceful protests and enforce the law when criminal acts occur. The LAPD remains focused on its core mission to protect lives, safeguard constitutional rights, and serve every neighborhood in Los Angeles with integrity. Let me open it up now for any questions you might have or any points that we can clarify.
Chief, the governor made a very strong statement that he didn't believe the Trump administration needed to activate those National Guard troops and take control of those National Guard troops in some of those areas because he felt we had adequate safety protections officers here. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, if I don't know what basis they used to make that decision, but if that was based on our what I delineated here about the perceived lack of response to a help call by an outside agency, that did not happen. We did respond with mobile field force configuration. And just to explain that, a mobile field force is a configuration of people or officers within the organization that we bring in from around the city. We declare a tactical alert so we can break them away from their primary duties of answering radio calls to be able to come in, form up. They're trained in this tactic into a configuration of 4 squads or a platoon that are led by a mobile field force leader. They then go 4 deep in the car and they drive into the impacted area, and that way they can safely go in a large group of officers and able to handle whatever they come across. If we were to send in a single unit or a couple of units into a riotous scene, certainly they'd be surrounded and the outcome would probably not be good. And so this is a configuration that has worked for us, developed here, worked for us for many years, but it doesn't happen instantaneously. So we have to call in units. We have to meet at a certain location. They get the information they need to operate in the environment, and then they go and they take care of business. And so that takes a little bit of time. For us to be able to get in there in about 35 minutes is pretty much textbook. So while we'd love to be able to say we can get there in seconds or minutes, in the reality of a situation of civil unrest, we got to do it right. We got to do it safely for everybody involved.
Hold on. Go one at a time, please, and let's identify name and outlet.
Victor with Univision Chief. We have seen two kinds of groups, at least from Friday, Saturday, and today that have been working. The community that is enraged and they're not happy with the actions of ICE, and then the community that loots and attacks and destroys our city. What would be your direct message to both groups?
Yeah, to the people who are not happy with the fact that ICE is in the community doing what ICE does, I respect ICE for being a fellow law enforcement agency. They have their mission. They have their what they have to do. We don't engage in that activity, but again, we can't preclude them from doing that. They have every right to do that. I ask people in the community to trust the LAPD, that we're not there for that purpose, and that if they have something they need us to be able to address, we're there for them. As far as the big picture of what can I recommend they do or not do, that's something it's a federal issue, and the federal authorities have the right to be able to do what they're doing. As far as people are worried about the violence that we're seeing, this violence that I've seen is disgusting. It's escalated now since the beginning of this incident. What we saw the first night was bad. What we've seen subsequent to that is getting increasingly worse and more violent. Tonight we had individuals out there shooting commercial-grade fireworks at our officers. That can kill you. And we have adapted our tactics to be able to have a chance to be able to take these people into custody and to be able to hold them accountable. We are overwhelmed as far as the number of people out there engaged in this type of activity and the type of things that they're doing. They'll take backpacks, and the backpack will have a cinder block in it. They have a hammer, and they'll break up the cinder block and use that, pass it around to throw at officers, to throw at cars, and throw at other people. We've seen people with hammers, and you've broadcasted, breaking the bollards behind the federal building and taking the rocks, if you will, or pieces of concrete, and throwing them at officers. We've had liquid of who knows what description thrown at officers. There's no limit to what they're doing to our officers. And again, as I mentioned in my statement, I can't thank our folks enough and our partner agency police officials for going out there and taking care of the community and trying to be able to put themselves between the threat and the overall community. And they do this night in and night out. And in these past couple of nights, we've seen it at a level that I think disgusts every good person.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You just described some pretty violent and chaotic situations. What is your position on the National Guard being deployed? Do we need them here?
Well, it's an interesting question, because I would have said that, we could handle this. I believe that we would have gone through a number of steps before we'd have deployed the National Guard or requested deployment of the National Guard. We would normally go to 50% deployment to handle radio calls and do the business of policing, and everybody else would be focused on the initial problem. Beyond that, then we would request through the sheriff mutual aid, and that would bring in members of the 44 other police departments in LA County, as well as the sheriff's office. And so that didn't occur in this case because it wasn't done through the sheriff or through up through the normal chain. It was done from the top down, from the president directing that happened, and then the National Guard was federalized. So they're working for the U.S. Army, not for the California State National Guard.
Do we need them?
Do we need them? Well, looking at it tonight, this thing has gotten out of control. I think before I could answer that, I'd have to know more about what their capabilities are, what their role is intended to be able to make that determination. But we have great cops in Southern California here that work together all the time. So we have tremendous capability here. To say that we would go to that right away, I'd say we wouldn't have been there yet. Looking at the violence tonight, I think we got to make a reassessment.
Laurel, how has your department interacted with the National Guard, if at all, since they've been here?
I'd say very little, other than we had a conference call this afternoon. There aren't a whole lot of soldiers in place at this time. They're still incoming. But the people who are here, they're tremendous Americans here trying to do, they provide their service, doing the task that they're charged with. Our relationship has been tremendous overall with the National Guard. We worked right alongside them for 5 months during the Palisades fire. They were there every day in the beginning in large numbers, and then that narrowed down before they demobilized. But the relationship is overall tremendous. We're very, very good partners with them, and I hope they feel the same about us.
And when you look at the demonstrators who are people from the community who are upset about, the immigration raids, families being broken up, deportations happening, do you feel any sense of kinship with them, or about this situation, or do you see that there is need for more law enforcement and for more immigration enforcement in Los Angeles?
I think the federal agents are enforcing federal immigration law, which is their right, and anybody can have their personal opinion on to what level that should be, who should they focus on, and those kind of things. I won't take a position on that because really that's not our focus, not our job. But when I look at the people who are out there doing the violence, that's not the people that we see during the day who are legitimately out there exercising their First Amendment rights and to be able to express their feelings about the immigration enforcement issue. These are people who are all hooded up. They've got a hoodie on. They've got face masks on. They're people who do this all the time, get away with whatever they can, go out there, from one civil unrest situation to another, using the same or similar tactics frequently, and they are connected. Some would call them anarchists or by any other variety of names, but they're people that we run across routinely city to city, and this is what they do. So even more disgusting that many of the people who are doing this come in from other places just to hurt people and to cause havoc.
Chief, let's go next to Telemundo over here.
Okay.
Zoe Navarro from Telemundo 52. Do you think that the presence of National Guard increased the level to this kind of situation? I mean, you said that it's disgusting. Do you think that if you control it without them, it could be a different situation?
I don't know. That's a very interesting question. What was the catalyst for us seeing the second and third day of this becoming increasingly more violent? To be able to say it's because of the National Guard, I can't, because there aren't enough on the ground at this point to make a difference. I've seen civil unrest a number of times before, and generally the second and third days are more violent than the initial phase. And so this is not much different from that pattern, but certainly I think there's a number of things that cause people to come out. Much of it is they watch this and see it on TV, social media, whatever social media outlets they follow, or asking them or telling them to come down and be part of this, and they do that. And they come out here, and many come out and just want to see what's going on. They're out there with their cameras, but they're putting themselves in harm's way and potentially setting themselves up for a criminal future. When you look at some of the things that are happening here, somebody could easily be killed. And if you're part of that, then you're going to be facing those charges as well. I talked to the DA just a couple of minutes ago, and the DA will file felony charges on individuals where it's appropriate, but won't be shy about doing that where it is appropriate. And also the potential for federal charges, given the type of environment we're in. And the federal authorities don't play. And so as we move forward, I think people will be surprised in some cases for what happens to their future.
Let's go 2 more questions. Anybody that hasn't asked already, go ahead. Thank you.
Lindsay Pena, KCLA. Given the amount of officers that are here in downtown LA, how does that affect response times in other parts of the city and safety of people that are not down?
Yeah. Thank you for that question. A great question. It was, how does the the deployment of so many officers downtown or in any one part of the city affect our ability to provide police services citywide. It greatly impacts our ability because it pulls officers who would normally deployed in communities around the city of Los Angeles into one area in order to be able to address the threat that we're facing. And so other areas, when we go on tactical alert, that means we only handle radio calls of significant importance, meaning a violent crime in progress, calls that have to be answered right away. So the other calls get put on a queue and may not get handled for some time to come, and they're important to everyone who is a victim of any kind of a crime. And so when we go to tactical alert, we don't do it lightly, but in this case we did it very quickly because we needed additional resources right away to be able to help quell the violence. And that situation, as you can see tonight, has only gotten worse.
Chief, given what you said about not being informed so you could pre-stage for the incident that started this thing, and you said, I believe, that you spoke with the ICE director as well as other city officials today. Is there any effort being made for ICE to share information about what their next move is?
Yeah, that's something that we did talk about, and there's no resolution to that. And the problem is that we are guided and bound by the California Values Act, which means that we can't participate in any way in civil immigration enforcement. So the federal partners have been reticent to provide information to us before something happens because of that reason. Part of that is they want to be respectful of the rules that we have to live by, but it also, on a normal situation, not that big a deal, but in a situation like we saw here in the past couple of days, it turns out to be a very big deal. So we're going to continue to work with the partners that I mentioned and many others as we go forward to try and be able to make things as safe for everybody as we can.
All right, Spectrum.
Chief, how many arrests so far?
You have that?
Yes, Captain Raul Javel, Operations Central Bureau, Incident Commander. At least, this is very fluid and preliminary, at least 10 people arrested so far. There's arrests being made as we speak. About 3 officers injured. Fortunately, very fortunate on very minor injuries, or I wouldn't say not minor, but they're not significant enough to be transported to a local hospital. They were treated at the scene. But we're making more arrests as we speak, and we're trying to get into that posture where we're able to make arrests. Right now, really, our officers are really under attack. If you can see, when the chief was talking about, we're trying to, first of all, ensure that our officers are safe and the public is safe, and then we'll move into, if we can arrest, we'll arrest, and then obviously protect the property and our vehicles and other things like that. But as of now, 10 arrests.
And if I could just jump on, and then 29 last night as well. And so as we move forward, we will step up our arrest posture in order to hold people accountable and do what we can to stop this violence.
We're going to go 2 more questions.
Really quick, yeah. She asked a question I have real quick. How long can we expect for this situation to happen?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
How long do you think this situation is going to be?
Yeah, for me, again, that would be speculative to say how long that the members of ICE will be in town doing the enforcement actions they're doing. But by calling out the National Guard, oftentimes their deployment periods are in 30-day periods. And so, to me, it's going to be an extended period of time. I don't know how long that'll be. We're gearing up for that to be able to participate in a meaningful way as we move forward without exhausting our people beyond what they already are. We're a department that went through 5 months plus of the fires and dealing with the fallout from the fires. And as you can imagine, with a very limited sized department to begin with, that's a big stress on our deployment, but more so on our people and their families. So as we move forward, we'll do everything we can to focus on employee wellness and to be able to offer whatever services we can to address the needs of our folks.
Sure. We'll go one more back there because he hasn't asked yet, and so Carmen, go ahead, and then one more, and then we're gonna call it.
So just 2 questions. One, is there a chance of instituting a curfew? And 2, will you be going back and re-looking at any of these incidents that maybe there wasn't an opportunity to make an arrest at a time, but going back and trying to investigate who's responsible and potentially arresting after that?
No, thank you for the question. I spoke with the sheriff today, and we discussed the possibility of implementing a curfew. We don't rush into doing that, but if we need to do that, I'll go back with the sheriff and we'll look at the options as far as that goes. And as far as give me the second part of the question again.
for some of these incidents we watch unfold, a lot of people watch
I got you.
things just unfold in real time,
Yeah.
thinking, are any of these people going to be held accountable
Yeah.
for this,
Yeah.
for the cars on fire and things like that? Is there a chance of going back?
Absolutely. When you look at the numbers of arrests we've made, pale in comparison to what will be made. There are video accounts of what happened everywhere on social media, on individuals, cameras, iPhones. We will go after that very aggressively. Go after the all available video, analyze that video, and hold whoever we can accountable for the variety of different types of crimes that have been committed. And that's something we'll do with a number of different partners with levels of expertise that may be beyond what we have. No, thank you for that.
Matt Armstead from the LA Times. Can you tell me on what charges people were arrested yesterday and today?
Do you have the specifics? Yeah.
So yesterday, the 29 folks were for failure to disperse. They were all arrested today. So today, so far, this is very preliminary because there's so much stuff going on. The stuff that we know is one person was arrested for throwing a Molotov cocktail at an officer, a significant incident, and then another individual for ramming a motorcycle into one of our line where the officers were and injured one of the officers. Everything else is still very fluid, and I won't have that for a while. So CHP has made at least 17 arrests that I'm aware of in the freeway.
All right, thank you, everyone. Commander Hurtado will stick around to do comments in Spanish for anybody who's interested.
Can we get the spellings of the captain?
Sure, everybody can come up and spell your name.
Captain Raul Jovel, RAUL JOVEL.
Thank you. You need anybody else? Okay. You good? Okay. Thank you all. Be safe out there, please, all of you too. You're in an environment that is as well just as dangerous, and we appreciate what you do. Okay. Thank you.
There you have it. I mean, they spoke pretty sensible, like they should. I always say this. I respect law enforcement officers. It doesn't matter if they're in California or whatever. But it's hard because these guys have to go through this lefty ideologist leaders who are just not ready, but say they are actually ready to support the people of California. So it is what it is, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully, peace, law, and order will be restored in the City of Angels. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself, believe in your dreams, and believe in Almighty God. Hopefully, this riots and vandalism and looting and burning cars and just destroying the city stops by the time we come back here tomorrow. All right? Or later today. All right, fathers, take care of your kids. Do not be out here doing stuff like this, okay? Don't be out here doing stuff like this. If you are in California, don't be out here doing stuff like this, okay? There's so many ways to protest peacefully, not like this. Do not incite violence, okay? Because it's not worth it. This is America. We want unity. It doesn't matter if you're liberal or conservative. Let the law enforcement officers do their jobs. Stop trying to impede law enforcement officers. It's not worth it. Okay? I love the United States. I believe the United States is the greatest country in the world. And this is my opinion. You don't have to believe it. But I believe this is the greatest country on earth. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to the military personnel. Shout out to the veterans. You guys protect the homeland. And thank you for our esteemed members. Shout out to the GOAT, Luke. God bless you for the super chat. God bless you. Shout out to Sandra. God bless you for being a member. Thank you so much, Sandra. Shout out to Ellie. Shout out to Ringmasters. God bless you. Now to our awesome moderators. God bless you, C. Shelley. Thank you for being here as always. Shout out to the Bucket Master, Mr. Booski. God bless you. Thank you for giving buckets to TDS members. Okay. God bless you. Also, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in every single night. You guys are awesome. It is your boy Genesis. This is the United States of America, and I believe this is the greatest country on earth. I love you guys. I gotta go. God bless you. God bless America. It's your boy Genesis. I'm signing out.